Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. And I'm calling the roll. Sheila Conlon here. Dave Kennard here. Nippy Awori
Here.
Steve Green
Here.
and our administrative assistant Mitsu Benz has resigned. And with board consent, Julie Ramstetter has volunteered to take the notes for the meeting tonight, if that's all right with the board. Do we need a motion or is it just
For the record.
We should probably do a motion.
okay? I'd like to make a motion that Julie Ramstetter has volunteered her time to track our meeting this evening. All in favor?
I second that motion.
Oh, so thank you. And so a motion and seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Do you want discussion?
I was gonna ask the question, does that include transcribing them or just recording them?
Transcribing them also.
And putting them on the
Yes,
website for
yes.
the edits.
Mitsu has graciously said that she will work with whomever. And Julie and Mitsu will get together and go over a few things in the office. And but Julie has said she would volunteer to do this job until we find and hire.
Oh, the job or just do minutes tonight?
Well, she'll do the minutes tonight and fill in for Mitsu until we hire someone. So I need to, oh.
Okay.
And Chris.
Apologize too much.
Yay.
Not apologize when you're out
Yeah.
serving the community.
Duty calls again.
And Chris Enray just joined us, our interim chief. So do you want me to correct the motion, Sheila? That she's going to be acting administrative assistant until we hire someone?
Yeah.
Okay, can I have a second on that?
You need to withdraw your.
Withdraw my first motion and make a second motion that Julie Ramstetter has volunteered to be acting admin until such a time as we hire a new administrative assistant. Second,
I second.
all in favor?
Discussion there.
Oh, discussion.
Jeff, since that may be open-ended, could be a while, and we appreciate Julie's willingness. There's pay involved. We have.
She's
This would be
volunteering.
volunteering?
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead. I would say, hey, if there is, depending on how long this takes, do
Put a
we want
time.
to put, do
I
we want to
just-
offer to
I just-
compensate
right,
her?
I just want to
at the
mention
same
some of
moment?
these, and for a paid position, we traditionally reviewed CVs, talked about confidentiality agreements,
Mhm.
et cetera, which would seem we're short circuiting a little bit, so.
Okay, so what do you suggest?
I guess it would be a two-part thing. She's volunteering very nicely to help us with the minutes tonight and would like to be considered either as a volunteer, which could be 10 or 15 hours a week, or paid position, hired on as the admin assistant, pending due process.
Okay.
Application.
Yeah.
CV.
Okay,
Can we just pay somebody in their interim until we find somebody as like understanding, like, hey, we're looking for somebody? I think it's still appropriate to like collect a CV, but I mean, we're not incurring the cost from Mitsu right now. And like 10 to 15 hours a week it's substantial. So
Right.
is it okay for us to
Fine with me.
consider that?
Yeah, sort of an ad hoc
Ad hoc, yes.
agreement. That sounds very reasonable.
okay, can you put that in the form of a motion? Because I'm not sure what.
Sure, I move that we accept Julie's willingness to volunteer to take our minutes tonight and her willingness to serve as interim department administrator on an ad hoc basis with prorated pay, subject to formal application processes and review.
That's your motion?
That's enough, isn't it?
That's-
Yeah.
You want a second? I second your motion.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of that motion? Aye. The motion passes. No, I didn't see anybody opposed. Thank you, Julie.
Was that weak applause there?
No, it's.
Yeah.
That was a confirmed kill.
Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to have a brief discussion about the planning commission meeting I attended last night in the hearing room one at Jeffrey Administration Building.
I'd second that.
Okay, that should go under new business, I believe. Is
Okay,
that correct? And so under new business, we'll put it at 5.3. Report on
5.3 or 5.5?
5.
You might, I think you have an older version. of
Oh, I
the
do.
agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
well, I must have an older version too.
yeah.
The version that's on the website right now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's
5.5. You
5.5.
rearranged yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. 5.5 will be a report of your meeting with planning. and
It would be
zoning.
report plus
Review.
a request for an action.
Okay. Review and a request for action.
Yes,
Can you tell me exactly where you again?
planning commission hearing, Jefferson County Planning Commission hearing.
We don't have another copy of that, I guess. That's
I
okay.
cannot. I should have put it out more.
Any other additions to the agenda? Dave?
A brief review and action item covering the district response to Cora requests.
I put that on.
That's
there.
on here.
It's on there.
It's on-
So you've got, you don't have a new
That's
one either.
5.3.
Okay. Right, thank you. Okay, that's on there. Any other things? All righty. Are there any conflict of interest of the board related to any of the agenda items?
None. Except maybe core requests.
I must have printed the wrong agenda because that's not on here.
The minutes were distributed, and so I'm asking for approval, or unless there are corrections or additions to the minutes as distributed.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
I
And those were the minutes from the August 18th meeting. Did we want to have public comment?
Well, we have public comment after the reports. I
Okay.
think that- And then we have it again after the
Yeah.
discussion. So I think
So we're
that's-
okay with
We're
that?
okay with that.
Okay,
Is that what-
treasurer's
Unless anyone else wants to move it.
report, Dave?
Busy month with a few things, so bear with me. So for August, our district expenditures were $9,939. We had no additional capital expenditures during the month. Our payroll expenses, as you saw on the financials, were less than scheduled. And in investigating that, our admin assistant had not put her hours in a timely fashion in the prior month. So those will be paid out next month as a 2-month lump sum.
Okay.
We had operating expenses of 5171. That included 5,223 for repair of vehicle damage caused by one of our vehicles, and also the receipt of $692 received by us for damage to one of our vehicles, both occurring during winter snowstorms. The administrative expenses of $2,342 included $305 that is an annual subscription fee for the I Am Responding software. And all of these transactions should be detailed on the transaction list. For the same month, we received $13,474 in revenue. That included $4,215 in reimbursement from the state for deployment expenses. Deb asked a great question online in response to publishing this. The checks that went to the firefighters went out for that service in March and April.
Okay,
So this is a
Okay.
delayed reimbursement from the state.
okay, so they did get paid for
They
deployment.
did.
Thank you.
Also included 7,121 in property and specific ownership taxes, $895 in grant revenue that I believe was a portion of the so-called SAFER grant. Chris may be able to give further details on that. And then finally, $794 in interest income rounded out the revenue. On our balance sheet, our bank accounts totaled $422,933 cash on hand. That's a combination of our Wells Fargo and interest yielding Colorado Trust savings accounts, both reconciled accurately at the end of the month. As before, prepaid expenses noted on the balance sheet are the year-to-date payments for property and liability insurance, workman's comp, and at the CPA journals in advance. Our credit card total balance was $641.22, and that will be paid in September in full automatically after the account cycles. Both the individual credit card transactions and the monthly auto payment show in full as always on the transaction list. And of note, net revenue year to date, so revenue received versus spent were 81,755 positive. On the income statement, we have tax revenues are 92.6% of budget. And that's actually remarkably good, well on schedule for this time of year. The property tax revenues will drop off to nothing in the next couple of few months, but the specific ownership tax revenues, which are based on car registrations, will typically continue at $1,000 to $2,000 a month. The deployment expense income noted on line 480 is net of the payments that we just talked about to the firefighters and reimbursement from the state. Personally, I think that's a little bit of an odd way on an income statement. Usually you have the income on one side and expenses on the other, and I drew that to the attention of the accountant. Is that the proper way to display it as a net? And I have not heard back.
I have not.
Capital expenses year to date are 5.4% of budgeted, and that's largely because the rehab plans for Station 1 developed over the past couple of years are on hold. Our vehicle expenses are over budget, about at 115%, with higher than budgeted repair and maintenance costs. That's at this point in the year, that's due largely to the accident repair costs that we mentioned above. But it's relevant to thinking about next year's budget items with an aging fleet. Station 3 repair and maintenance over budget due to the issues last winter with garage door furnace and pipe repair. But overall, our facilities are on budget, 74% year to date for August, so we're in pretty good shape. Our year to date capital expenses are unchanged, $6,160 for the bedding at Station 82. Of note, we received last month a cash contribution from the Grange, which I believe is characterized as a contribution in kind, in that they were intended to pay for some or all of some of those bedding expenses. And I wasn't involved in the exchange, so I don't know exactly. And so there, and that shows
I
up.
think that's auxiliary, sorry, not Grange.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Auxiliary, yeah.
Yes, I
So-
thought that.
So that,
Mary, no?
We didn't send you any money.
No, are you talking about the $400 for the trash for the Grange?
no,
here?
I'm not
That's a
talking
different
about that.
subject, okay, got it.
Yeah, we got
I saw it.
$372 from the auxiliary.
Oh,
And
it was reimbursement for either beds or
Bedding,
I think
Yeah.
for the bedding.
Betty,
Yeah, for the beds.
bedding.
So
And
where,
Station 2.
so where did that go and how was it received?
So the money, the check itself goes in our general fund. The accounting shows up on the budget versus actuals as a in-kind donation of 372.
Okay.
And that's what I was drawing your attention to. Whether a cash donation that pays for something we purchased should be categorized as an in-kind donation or not. Those have always been a little challenging in terms of how to book them, but in any case, it's there.
Okay. It was just, what I thought I heard you say was you were not involved. So I was like, so how did we get the money?
Yeah.
That was-
Right, I wasn't involved with accepting, depositing, or categorizing, but I'm trying to relate to you what I see.
So who did accept it?
I think Sam, I think Sam's wife bought the bedding because they were on a crunch, and then if I'm not mistaken, Mary Auxiliary refunded, correct?
We refunded to GGFPD.
Right, but I
Yes.
think Sam's wife, if I'm not mistaken, we have to come back in minutes and look, I think she originally went out and bought the stuff.
Could have been.
And then to follow the trail, the check would have gone to Mitsu. Mitsu would have deposited it, entered it into our register, and I'm recording what I see.
Thank you.
And then we reimbursed.
No,
We were reimbursed.
no, I mean,
Sam's.
you got,
Yeah, did she get paid? I wonder,
Okay, we'll find out.
not sure.
Yeah, I don't know about the same.
Yeah, I don't know about this.
We can, I can.
We would have
I-
heard.
I can probably look up older transactions. And our mechanical engineering plans, $5,500 for Station 81. So those are the only CapEx this year. Big news, we did get our preliminary certificate evaluation from Jeffco, and I think I shared a copy of that in emails. Our taxable assessed value is $21,437,279. It's down slightly from our N22 value of $21,714,000. So at our current mill levy, which is 9.16, that translates to about a 1.3% reduction in our tax revenue for 2023.
Yay.
So
That's
the reason that for those new to the cycle on some of this stuff, the assessments are really only done on an every other year basis. So typically we go a year where we don't see much change. The reason it went down this year was in the springtime, the legislature changed our RAR from 7.15 to 6.95.
From
Statewide,
what were the two numbers?
7.15
To 695?
6.95. And also in that same legislation, they exempted some properties, like some mobile home properties, and there were a couple other exemptions that went in. We ultimately will get a breakdown of properties in our district, apart from the preliminary evaluation. And that will show if we've had a big change in our tax basis because of exclusions. But it's a 1.3% change. In response to our inquiry, the Office of the State Auditor has informed us that as of August 19th, due to the large number of exemption requests they received this year, their office has not completed their review of our application for exemption. That question came up at the last meeting, and that's
And it was gonna come up again.
that's our current status. That may create some logistical issues for districts as we get towards the end of the year. Not just us, but accountants and everybody else. So that'll be interesting. Chief Enright has been added to our user list on QuickBooks with full administrative access. Former Treasurer Trost and Chief DeFeo have been removed. Interestingly, at our current decreased user numbers, QuickBooks programming charges you by the number of folks you have going in and entering. We qualify for a decrease from 200 a month to 75 a month. So there'll be over 1,000 savings.
We also had another board member that had user,
Right, and he dropped off last spring.
yeah, so that might contribute to the decrease.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Is there at all, that might already be the rate, but is there like a discount for nonprofits from QuickBooks? No,
This was originally negotiated 6 or 7 years ago with our nonprofit tax exempt status at the state level shared with them. I don't know that it's been revisited
okay.
since
I
then. It
don't want
might
to
be
look
worth-
and then find out they're gonna raise our rates. So,
Right,
yeah, I might take a look, but not under the color of the board.
that's a good idea.
So,
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
thank you.
The chief's old credit card has been canceled and a new credit card, thank you, Deb, for Chief Enright has been requested from Wells Fargo, but the mail apparently hasn't been checked and 7 to 10 days, is my understanding, so.
Yeah.
It's, my guess is it's probably.
Sitting in the post
mailbox.
office box.
Okay.
So who's going to take on that responsibility if Mitsu's not doing it? We need to designate somebody to check that mail in the PO box,
Right.
and then what they do with it.
Sorry, how often do you want to check? How often does Nancy check it?
Twice a week.
Twice a week.
Twice a week. We,
Yeah, it's right downtown.
Yeah,
I mean, if we have the previous admin's job description and we're agreeing to allow Julie to serve an ad hoc role for that, I think those would be the same expectations, right?
I agree.
Is that, okay?
We should have that, what do you call it, an action item, get the keys to Julie?
yeah, I'm gonna set it
Somebody-
up with Mitsu for her to turn in. She has keys to.
Do you have Mrs. Keys?
Is that the post office spot?
Yep,
Is that
Oh,
all three of
really?
the
Okay.
keys?
yeah, she already handed over to me. I have a
Oh, she
A
had.
door
three-
key.
Yeah, oh,
I have a
wonderful.
door key, a padlock key, a filing cabinet key, and a PO box key.
Did you give her a
Okay.
receipt for that?
I did not, but I can.
I think it would be a good idea to send her an email saying we have, I am in receipt.
Thank you for the keys.
Okay, so there are the keys, the 3 keys.
And maybe say 4 keys or 3 keys.
And whatever the keys were for.
Do we have a job description of the admin?
Yeah, I think you
Sheila,
asked.
could you maybe bring that up for us or get it to somebody? Because I've never seen
Julie
it.
or us? Both.
All of us, yeah. I
All
thought
of
you
us.
did that before, like
No,
we
I've
asked
never
for
seen
it.
it. I've never seen a job
When
description.
you guys were running for the board and after you were elected, you asked for a bunch of stuff. That was one of the things that we sent, the chief's job description, and I think actually Mitsu sent it out.
Okay,
I've never seen it.
well, I'll look for it. and we'll-
Okay.
yes.
And if we don't find it, can we reach out to you to resend it, Sheila, or would it come
If I
from
have it.
Mitsu?
If I have it
If you
somewhere.
have it,
Who would Chief DeFeo have had that? Like, we had a job description, so I'm just wondering if, like, if you have
Yeah,
access.
because
to
we
those
used it
files.
when we hired Mitsu in the first place.
Right.
We interviewed a number of people, so we
Right,
had
Okay.
an updated one.
I should be able to get into those if we can't find it easily. It will be interesting to start to dive into that, right? So it won't be an immediate answer. It'll be a 24 to 48 hour.
That's
answer.
absolutely acceptable.
that's fine. Okay,
The budget committee has started to talk. Obviously, we're just hot off the press with our income data. So we're corresponding via email to begin work on the 2023 budget for initial presentation. That should be the highlighted agenda item in October.
yes.
So by statute, it has to be presented and then
Presented
published
and
prior to
voted
the
on
15th.
at the October meeting, is that correct? Or
No.
presented and then voted on at the next?
Correct. It's down the line that the acceptance votes, there's public input process.
Right. That's
I'll
right.
send you the state has sort of a calendar of statutory dates.
Dave and Chris, can we get together one evening and actually talk in person?
Absolutely,
Maybe over a cup of coffee somewhere or whatever works for all.
Yes,
for sure.
I think
No
that'd
problem.
be useful, but it gets a little cumbersome. And some of the newer software tools are hard for the oldsters to negotiate.
Isn't that the truth?
But I did want to mention that, you know, a couple of decisions that I think would be of value for the entire board, not to have an answer for, but perhaps to be ready to weigh in on. One is, what general inflation rate do we apply to our budget estimates for next year? Okay, so
Certainly the fuel cost.
You know, state laws.
Among other things, yeah.
So in the past, there've been 1% to 2% inflation estimates, and that clearly would be out of step with economic reality. So I think that's something the budget committee can come up with an estimate, but I think everybody wants to weigh in on that. Also, you know, what are our capital, the big element that either gets allocated and either spent or not spent are the capital expense items, which of course reflect the priorities of the district. And so the budget committee can float some ideas, but in isolation can't come up with representing the priorities of the district in that respect. So I'd be prepared and thinking about what do we want to accomplish in terms of capital expense. I think the budget committee may be able to lay out, and with new chief Enright's input, what are department needs and priorities, what are district needs and priorities? And then we have to filter that with what works.
And a reserve for uncertainty. In these economic times, I do believe there is some.
There's actually prudence, I think was what you're
Don't like to run us down too.
There's also legal reserves for which Tabor Reserve is actually called out.
Right.
Budget that has to be in there, which at our size budget, it's about a 1% allocation.
Small.
And we traditionally have also done a 5% contingency. So that's in there as a 10,000.
Like an emergency
So-
fund.
Right.
Okay.
So for unbudgeted items that come up, there is that flexibility. This may be a year that could demand even more. So some of that's in there, but more. And as you heard, in terms of our savings and cash on hand, we have substantial liquid resources.
Is that coming from running, with just surplus funds for years?
Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly right.
I think the other major contributing factor is we had 100,000 budgeted for the remodel of this station in FY '22, and obviously that's not going to proceed in FY '22 because we've got double-digit number of days left. So rolling those funds forward to FY '23 seems logical, and that's 100 grand that we've got basically rolling over. That's a helpful boost towards $175,000 remodeling project.
Yeah, and also, when you look over the budget, the highlighted items are the ones that are over budget. It's a good budget. We've held it down within. There are only a few items that are over, and they're not over by that much, and that's a positive.
Yeah,
And
I think
I think we've called out some of the problem areas.
Yeah, as we've looked at what's been over for this fiscal year so far, it's been principally fleet expenses. And we both understand from two factors why that is the case. And there's a few other odds and ends and suppression and things like that, where perhaps a restructuring and how we plan those expenses would be the way to address it. They're not unforeseen. They're just different. We had them under different lines in the past. So there's some minor changes that will be suggested from a category perspective of shifting from a broad equipment line to instead breaking out suppression, EMS, and rescue or something to that effect. Just so we have more fine control, we can predict some of that a little bit more in advance.
One other line item that the entire group probably should be prepared to weigh in on, and perhaps we can resolve tonight. In hiring interim chief Enright, my impression was our discussion was that he would be entitled to the chief's pay. We did not actually say what that chief's pay should be or whether there'd be a change. Steve raised the issue. We didn't actually fix on a number, so I had put it in QuickBooks as same number and change one person to the other. But if that's not the case, then if not tonight, then for next year, be prepared to say that's what's penciled in right now.
Okay. Is it too late to just add that as an agenda item to discuss the pay?
It's not too late for me.
Okay, I'd just like to get it resolved.
It
if
should
that's-
be. We
Okay.
talked about resolving it at this meeting at the last meeting,
Okay.
and it just slipped by. That's all. Didn't get on the agenda.
Do you want to add?
Let me take it
Have
up
a
right now.
discussion of,
Well, Dr. Carr needs to finish his treasurer's.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know it's,
Okay.
we're just about done. Steve had asked for accounting resources and I wanted to, so this will be in our minutes. Our general accounting is handled by Smith and Associates, which is a Lakewood-based general accounting firm. They weigh in on a monthly basis. The audit accounting, and now this is something that you'd have to dig further into our archives to find because we've had audit exemptions for 3 years, but for 2 years prior, for the first time in 10 years, we did an audit 2 years in a row. And that firm was John Cutler and Associates. we're not committed. You know, we're planning on an audit for next year. We're not committed to him, but he's the one that has history with the district. He's aware of our, you know, idiosyncrasies. He's also the one that, when we get back the audit exemption approval from the state, it'll say this is approved, but with these conditions. And it'll list out a bunch of criteria that sound like only auditors could figure it out. And in sharing those with Cutler, he has said, we'll address those at the time of the next audit. So he does have that history, and I think it'd be important to reach out to him as a resource when that comes up.
Ballpark of cost for an audit in the past?
It's
a
been in
long
the
time ago.
$5,000 to $6,000 range, plus we had to hire an assistant to help us get our records into shape that the auditor could even, this was going back 5 or 6
Yeah,
years. And we were
okay, but we're in
transitioning
better
into
shape.
QuickBooks. We are, she saved a lot of time and effort and back and forth with the accountant at a high rate, so that may be something to consider.
Are
She
we
was,
better prepared
she
for
was
that
an
now
additional
with QuickBooks?
yeah, she was, yes,
Okay,
she was an additional couple of grand,
okay.
yeah.
So that'll be included in a budget projection.
Yeah, I would
I think it's
definitely. And then finally, on a personal note, this will be my final report as treasurer for the district. I wanted to thank everybody for their support over the last 6 years and the opportunity to serve residents in this very special district.
Are you
I'll
staying
be
on
submitting, no, I'll be submitting my resignation at the end of the meeting.
for the
Yes,
board and the trade?
Yeah.
Total things?
Yeah.
Sorry, Dave.
And I will too.
I'll leave plenty of time on post dating it to help anyone that's interested pick up some of the loose ends.
Okay. Thank you.
I have some questions in there.
Yes, please.
Let's see. What is the, am responding, I know you guys said annual subscription, responding annual subscription, $305, what is that?
I'll let Chris
So-
tell you about.
Annual Responding, or I Am Responding, is a platform that delivers notifications to our members as incidents come in. So this is the app interface, for example. Based on the agency, we see who is clicked in that they're responding. So we can see the list of who's coming with what
Other
times.
departments too?
Potentially, as things are connected and interconnected, you have that
So it's
information.
coordinated communications
Yes, so
between our
it's.
mutual aid districts.
It's principally more on the alerting side. So I Am Responding acts as a way that our members are notified that an incident is occurring. There's a 911 call without members having to have their radios on 24/7. There's plenty of radio traffic on our primary dispatch channel. So the ability to filter that by having a program and digital platform that handles that
Okay,
simplifies things dramatically and leads to more effective operations.
okay, next question. The August website fee, is that a monthly fee or is that like a biannual?
Monthly.
$150 a month to manage the website, or is that for exactly what?
150 months to manage the website.
That's expensive, isn't it? Seems expensive.
We had budgeted anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 a year for several years. Nothing got spent. The website fell into a bit of disrepair. And last year, we hired
Novell.
Novell.
Yeah, okay, well, you've answered my question.
Yeah.
The accountant's charging $350 a month also. Does he give us $350 of service? Do you talk to him frequently as treasurer? Or is it this, what do we get?
Right, right. The,
Because that's like 4,000 a year or something.
right.
More.
There was a gap in my service for the treasurer, but when I initially took it over years ago, we had an accountant who was charging slightly more than that. Didn't answer phone calls, didn't help us with planning, didn't help us with formatting budgets and QuickBooks, didn't help us with audit exemption applications. And so and didn't help us with thinking about tax form preparation. So I was a little frustrated. And at that point, we sort of reopened things. We had the two lowest bids that came in. One was from a fellow in Black Hawk, and the other was from a fellow whose firm Damien had worked with, Damien DeFeo. And so we lowered our cost and went with him. The basic service line, I can send you his sort of letter of engagement.
That's for Robin.
Yeah. But from the treasurer's point of view, basically, this is a guy who's a CPA, who's reviewing our books on a monthly basis, who reconciles and closes the bank statements, who answers questions when we come up with how should we categorize this in-kind donation versus a charitable versus this versus that, gets us into shape to submit audit exemptions, helps us with that. Is it worth $350 a month?
Or 4,000 some odd a year.
Yeah.
4,200 a year.
So you,
That is something to consider.
I guess one way to answer that would be if you could get somebody of a good repute and to do the same for less. I wouldn't be worried that there's something that might be missed because it's a relatively modest ask.
but he's familiar with our
He's
district.
familiar.
You get what you pay for, one. Two, if they're billing out 150, 175 bucks an hour, like that's 2 hours of work. Something tells me we're getting more than 2 hours of work based on what I see.
He answers a lot of QuickBook
Yeah.
questions and changes categories and helps with a lot of the things that Mitsu needed help with too. QuickBooks is not all that.
He sort of became, after we got Mitsu oriented, sort of her day-to-day resource
Mhm.
on how to try and do things correctly. And yeah, I think it is kind of the friends and family rate.
Mhm.
Okay,
As opposed to this is a public district, so whatever I do, I'll triple it. And delete it. I've never had that sense.
I feel very strongly that we're getting far more value than what we're paying.
Just wanted to hear some people.
Okay.
The next question is, I noticed a big difference between the internets and the two stations, but maybe I'm reading this wrong. The satellite, Musk Starlink internet, it's listed at $110 a month.
That's
You're
correct.
on the income statement, Steve?
Yeah, on the transaction.
Transactions.
That's what it costs.
Yep, that's the monthly cost.
Okay, and then I think it's station 2 with Viasat. It's $163 a month. And that seems like it's reversed. I thought the Starlink was
Simple, it's a
expensive.
simple explanation. It includes TV service. So it's with the shift quarters there, we have a monthly TV subscription.
Okay,
And in fact, it was about 140, and in talking to Mitsu, the firefighter who was last in residence wanted more data than our plan provided. So we upped the plan. He actually reimbursed us for that delta. But since he's been gone, the plan has not been downshifted. And we've lost the reimbursement. So there's 20 or 30 bucks a month that was coming in to help with that is no longer.
and nobody's watching TV there. I don't know if there's an option just to have internet without the television
Quite
service.
frankly, if we were to switch, we should switch them all to
does?
Starlink.
They're watching TV there.
Oh, okay. I didn't know who was watching.
I think it's essential for.
Okay.
Personal.
Very good.
Sam, does the TV get, that's from Viasat?
I don't know.
Okay.
I never watched it there,
And-
but I know they're using it.
Yeah, so we'll keep the TV service there for sure, but also if we might want to switch all of them to Viasat. I mean, for unlimited, when I had, or sorry, to Starlink, excuse me. Sorry. When I had Viasat for unlimited, it was $220 a month.
Yeah.
And the service is way better with Starlink and it's half that cost.
And
There's,
you can watch TV with.
you can stream TV with Starlink, you can, yes.
I think the only concern with Starlink is the uptime. It's not a 4 nines uptime or a 2 nines uptime or anything like that versus, I think Viastat's slightly better. It's 6 1/2 for me. If it makes more sense to go one way or another.
Okay.
How about if we just put a note down to look into?
We'll look into it.
I think that's a good idea.
The some of the folks in the Station One neighborhood have tried without success to initiate Starlink. I have no idea what's involved, and I'd heard from you and others that the service down Canyon was terrific. And since it's
For Starlink.
satellite based, I have no idea. It shouldn't be any different, I would think.
For Starlink?
So, yeah, so
Sorry.
my only caution would be don't discontinue
No.
one service.
No,
Of course
Until
not.
the
yeah.
other-
Until the other one's there, obviously, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And my last question, are you still doing the budget with us?
Through the date that,
oh,
I'll try and be.
What day
available.
is that?
Well, I post days of the week to help people with QuickBooks access and answer any questions, but no, I have the.
You will serve on the
Budget
budget
committee
committee?
until-
Okay,
We need somebody else in the budget.
yes. Looking for a volunteer.
well, we'll get there.
We get there.
It's a good process to go through, so both of you may want to
Yeah.
kind of tune into it. That'll save you time as a
You
general
will
meeting.
co-share.
Well, we can't have
Yeah,
more. than-
Oh, yeah, that's right, that's right.
that's right.
That's right.
Okay. We'll get you somebody. That you've got a week to work with them, Dave.
Mhm.
Continue to work on the budget.
Well, we haven't been doing that much. We're gearing up. So
Okay,
Better get it done this week.
let's put a speed, let's put a little speedy thing on it. Thanks, Dave.
Good questions.
Yeah, all right. Do we need to accept the treasurer's report?
I think it's just information.
We don't need a motion. Okay. Chief's report is next.
Okay. No, I believe got everything that was requested in the packet that went out on Tuesday night. Since then, there have been some changes in call numbers, et cetera, but I think the general statistical trends that are presented are still valid. Kind of going down the memo, Chief Field equipment has been returned. Everything was in good condition, with no concern or issues noted, consistent with draft SOG and with the standing tradition requirement is keeping his helmet, the helmet shield that goes on it, as well as his badge and any personalized, so like the name flap off the back of his coat. Those are standard things that our firefighters keep when they retire after a certain amount of service. Usually 1 year is what it takes to be able to keep personalized items. Beyond 2 years, we generally allow them to keep the helmet of the rank that they finished at. That's been the tradition of the department, and I think with 5 years of service, it's appropriate to hang on your helmet. As requested, my CV and.
Can we just,
Yes, please.
go back to the transition? Is there extra support or anything that you would need from former Chief DeFeo in that transition? Would there be a benefit from, having his advice or counsel on thoughts and things, or are you okay?
I think so, but simultaneously, I feel comfortable reaching out to him. Obviously, we've been working together for 5 years. So I have a good working relationship with him. So as questions come up or other issues come up, he's a reliable person to get in touch with. Still remains active in the fire service in the local area.
The question for me, I know it's not on the agenda, it really comes from, if he's gonna have to put considerable effort into that, there was a termination date, which would be the last date paid. But if he's gonna do, it was 40 hours a month, if it's, sorry,
20.
He was salaried, so independent of hours.
okay, well, I believe in the job description, it said, like, this is the contribution that's expected. My whole point is, like, if he's going to have to put effort into this, I wanted us to consider, like, paying him out for another couple weeks or a month, consulting fee of some sort.
Seems unlikely. I don't think it's necessary at a consultant level
Okay.
of pay and contribution. It would be generally like ad hoc. Where is this file kind of questions that are answered in
Okay,
a non-billable amount of time.
okay. Just wanted to make sure we consider that.
So he's paid through August, is that correct?
He may have, as one example, I saw copies of emails about refined applications for the grant application for Station One.
Yes.
So I think that there's elements in play that you may want to take advantage of any willingness that he would have to talk about
It's,
transitions where they're needed.
I mean, I don't know if he's finished that grant application. He talked about spending a lot of time on it. So that's one of those things, hey, if you were working on this, if you're still willing to, I think that's a consulting fee of some sort. Unless that's, hey, you're ready to just take it and go.
It's a good question, and I don't have a good answer for you at the moment. I think if the need arises, I feel comfortable reaching out to get approval prior to encumbering those funds or
Okay.
encumbering the time at least.
Okay.
Specifically regarding that grant, I am now on the chief faculty fire email address. So I did receive that email, so
Okay.
the handoff is starting to happen.
Okay.
So we'll,
Okay.
and his, so in August will be his last, it'll be his
Paid
last.
through 1 September, basically.
Right, that was cleared and okayed as of yesterday with
Okay.
his turning in. So he's paid up for the end of regular service.
Okay.
Okay,
So Chris, you're gonna let them know if you need a consulting fee.
That's correct.
okay.
And then do we need to vote on an action to just continue the same pay for interim chief Enright or
Yeah, do
anything?
we want to just figure that out now?
Certainly, if there's a change,
Well, just the same pay works for me. Are you aware of what that is?
2,000 a month is my understanding.
Before tax.
Correct.
So we'll
Okay.
keep that on.
We'll just,
that, by way of, maybe Sam can help me out here. For Sheila, when Damian first came on, his first chief's assignment, I believe it was at a lower pay grade,
It's
And
supposed to
then
be
we-
15, I think. Annually,
15.
annually.
So we,
15,000 a year.
right, so we've
I think that's
gone
what it
from
was based
15 to
on,
24 in
We raised
5
it
years or
once.
so. So
But that was based on service and experience and not just inflation or
And-
anything.
Qualification.
Qualification, okay.
certification.
So it was originally at what?
15,
I think 15. But it was on an hourly basis,
Might have
based
been
on
18.
40 hours a month.
That's what I thought.
Mhm.
Okay.
And now you said it was 24?
24.
I,
I mention that only that as we enter in both to this process and then hiring process, you're not tied into this figure and those hours. There's some
Mhm.
flexibility and we have history of starting low and then rewarding performance.
okay.
what do you think?
Well, we're negotiating the salary right in front of him.
Yeah, I know.
So I have a day job, so.
I know.
Based on the precedent, I know this is 5 years ago. Sam, would you have any input or any view on, hey, like, look, he's not as tenured as Chief DeFeo was, and
Well, I'd say you're asking Chris to step in an interim basis,
Yes,
and he has a day job that he makes a lot more than the money that we're paying him.
Mhm.
So I would pay him what you're paying the chief.
okay, that's what I wanted to
Basis
go with.
is what I mean, that's my opinion.
Okay, I appreciate your.
Now,
yeah.
a new chief, you could certainly,
yeah,
you
Go
certainly
higher, lower.
analyze that and
Mhm.
maybe look at the market and see what that is, but
I agree.
also remember before the video, we had a chief a year, so.
All right, so let's just maintain
Yes.
the existing on the interim basis. Okay.
Second.
Any more discussion? Right, I move that we maintain the payment to the interim chief at the same level of 24,000 annualized for up to 40 hours a month of service. You second that
I think actually the way we structured the contract was a minimum
minimum?
of 40 hours of
Okay.
service. And that was based in part on prior chiefs having trouble hitting that. So we sort of set a base expectation and its salary. So there wasn't a overtime
Right,
mechanism. That may be something you want to consider going forward.
okay,
But I would say that that's sort of a floor of
okay.
expectation.
Does that work for you? What are you doing right now?
I'm at, so as of the end of the day yesterday, I'm at 27 hours.
For the month?
For the month.
Okay,
So 40 will be hit quickly.
okay. All right, so amending again, 40 hours minimum a month on an interim basis at annualized $2,400, sorry, 24,000 a year.
Yes.
400 each. No.
2,400 a year. And we need to be turning it some year.
Okay, do we have, I think we have a second on that? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Go ahead with your report, Chris. We kind of
Thank you.
sidetracked
No
you.
problem at all.
Kind of sidetracked you.
As requested, CV inserts were included in the packet, emailed out. Continuing chief's transition. I've started a skeleton of a position description, really at the certifications and working out from there. I'd call that a 0.1% draft, not even a 10% draft. It's much less than that.
Did you ever receive the position description for Chief DeFeo?
If I have, I'll need to dive deep.
Okay, we'll
on
try
that.
and, I believe either Sheila or Mitsu sent that to us before,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, if you have that, I
Get you
appreciate it.
in,
Yeah. I don't believe many changes will be required from there, just making sure that we have a de minimis certification level, things like that, to just ensure simple liability protection, et cetera.
Mhm.
And you'll get that to Steve and me and then you'll have the ability to send it out.
Correct.
Okay.
That's my plan. I'll send you the draft. I'll send you the skeleton as soon
Okay.
as we're ready. And then draft will be after at least a round of input, and then we'll have something that can go wide.
Thank you.
So finance, started the preliminary thoughts, conceptual numbers, the FY23 budget, working with Director Kennard principally. Noted it, I did them as PDF comments because I live and die by PDF comments, I guess. The key components to discuss, really between CapEx and OpEx, Station 81 remodel, rolling those funds over to FY23 plus additional contribution seems to make sense. Similarly, if we get DOLA money to assist in those expenditures, it gets a lot easier. The other big critical capital item is going to be starting to work on fleet replacements. The most critical one is unfortunately going to be the most expensive one of replacement type 3. Particularly engine 81 here at this station has had a history of mechanical and electrical gremlins over the last 7 years, including but not limited to small electrical fires in the cab of the truck. Obviously extinguished, but it is indicative of an increasing need for replacement of an apparatus that is approaching its last legs, and particularly thinking of that model year and those years of apparatus.
You're putting the end of
It's a
life
rough
at
spot.
8 years.
I think we have no more than 8 years to replace it. I think its end of life has probably already happened. We're on borrowed time with that apparatus. Unfortunately, it's in the weird timeline where a lot of electrical controls started to show up, and not as much mechanical control. Engine 83 is a 1995, I think. Is that right, Sam? It's as old as my younger brother, and it's going to run forever because it's only mechanical. The electrical is bare bones, starter, lights. That's it. This engine's got a lot more electrical going on, and it was in a weird set of years where we weren't really good at truck electronics quite yet. So looking at either a used but more recent apparatus or potentially acquisition of a brand new type 3 that meets our district's needs is something that we need to be kind of aggressively considering. The 8-year timeline is listed simply from what it would take, kind of not even back of the envelope, just mental sketch of how long it would take to accrue the funds we need to pay for it.
Okay.
But it's significant.
Would we trade in 81? What do we do with 81?
We could try and
We
trade
try
that.
to keep it. We have.
I would trade that. I would trade that apparatus. I don't think we would want to hang on to it much longer. If we get a replacement, we shouldn't hold on to it.
In your many things that you're tasked with, if you could work on a priority list.
Yes.
Fleet
Replacement plan is on my punch list.
Good.
It's lower than the report for today. So it's happening. It's
I
just
know
not
you're,
ready yet.
it would be nice to be able to look and see, so we can look forward to the
Certainly.
future and plan.
Yeah, and in parallel with that is the need for a type 6 or utility type apparatus. To really kind of round out and make sure that we have a light vehicle and a heavy vehicle at every station. We can go with a type 6, so capable of pumping water delivery and wildfire attack, or we can go with a utility platform and think more in the light rescue, have it equipped with hydraulic tools, rope rescue, things like that, to handle what looks like about a vast majority of our calls. At least 50% of our calls are rescue type calls. So an apparatus that can handle that with a suppression apparatus, vehicle, kind of a hand in hand, pick which truck based on the call kind of situation. Obviously, these are super preliminary, pending kind of a more exhaustive analysis of what makes sense and what's recommended. OpEx, I'm tossing an 8% inflation rate on paper. I think that's a fun discussion item that we can decide what makes sense as an escalation factor either way, but I think definitely a higher percentage of inflation will serve us well. Fleet maintenance expenses are expected to be ahead of inflation, both with the age of the fleet and with simply the changing dynamics of big supply chain, big industrial, and therefore truck and automotive costs being in that same world. We need to be thinking fleet replacement will be ahead of inflation cost wise. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, breaking down funding a little bit more between suppression, rescue, and EMS, just as a way to pay more attention to those line items and think more comprehensively. Those are the initial thoughts on finance, obviously pending considerably more discussion on a budget. Just these are the high level items to guide as we start to mess with the numbers themselves.
Sam, the Granger order that I think I saw came up, does that, I thought I saw an email about you setting up like a recurring payment or supply.
Oh, we're looking at Fastenal.
Fastenal, okay. All right, does that impact any of?
No, that's just for some basic supplies.
Okay,
Exactly. It's a way to streamline normal operational expenses, especially because they have a branch at the base of the canyon and can be an asset to us. They probably do an awful lot, so we'll take advantage of whatever we can.
sorry, I have a Granger account, not Fastenal.
No, I get it. It's just, as long as we pay a little less than we pay, then there's paper Granger, I'm okay.
Yeah, could I just kind of interject here, the state of the stations is something high on my priority list, and maybe come up with maybe using some experienced community members to just inventory and start a list on just one of the stations to start with, so that we know what we're facing as far as bringing them back, back up and including the grass cutting and outside, inside. I know there's.
Might have done that already.
Who?
Former chief DeFeo.
I didn't see it.
Did he do an appraisal or an assessment of all the fire?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
If it is in the files, it's deep in the
Okay.
files.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I think where you're talking about that is what we had discussed, just going through like a station by station review and.
Yeah,
coming up with
just
a list.
one at a time.
And I had suggested, go ahead, Chris.
So just a simple punch list.
Yes.
For maintenance.
Just to get an idea, and obviously your input would be critical. But I was thinking that somebody who's in this room right now might be able to help out. And as we go through the station, just kind of put a list together that we definitely see these things, these items that need to be tended to.
the station
For
lieutenants
instance,
keep
the-
that?
Generally, yes.
Okay.
That is their responsibility, and
That would be the firefighter.
It's the lieutenants assigned.
So
to
we
each
could get
station.
them to give us that.
That is my.
And discuss it.
Okay, yeah, whatever. Let's get a wish list going.
But there could be some things they're used to and they haven't quite, they might not just recognize what we might, like, for example, we've had a lot of complaints about grass.
Sure.
Obviously, it's not the most critical thing, but it is part of the appearance and the community, like I said, the sign. For
Yeah.
example, those things could go kind of get lost in. the-
Yeah, they're
Go in the
down
cracks.
on the list, but they're still on the list.
Right,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Make sure appearance items are included as well as.
Yeah.
Trucks
Yeah.
starting and getting out the door,
Yeah.
Well, list A, list B, list C.
certainly.
okay.
One thing to think about may save you some time during the calendar year with an audit coming up in the spring. Part of that process will be an inventory with a replacement list and comparing that to old inventory. So you could get a 2-for-1. Go ahead and categorize what you have, what its maintenance needs are, what its replacement schedule is, and you'll have a leg up when it comes to the audit process.
Thank you.
Going on.
Administration, one interesting note that, I know a lot of our, that I forwarded to all extended invitations to all of our directors, as well as to my officers, is the Asana project management platform. The long and short of it is, it's a way to keep track of all the balls in the air and to sort by list. And I like that I can do dependencies and I can have basically a Gantt chart running of everything that needs to get done.
Is there a cost associated with that?
We're in a trial period right now. So for the first, we got 20 something days left. It's $11 a head a month. Following that, contingent on how we feel the trial is going.
How do the firefighters feel about it so far?
It doesn't go out to the membership, it's just with our officers.
Okay.
Just a lieutenant.
Well, how do the officers feel about
I
Sam?
haven't used it a whole lot. I mean, I've looked at it, but
it? Okay.
haven't been active.
Definitely helping me hold the ducks at least in something resembling a row.
Okay.
And not.
It sounds-
miss deadlines.
sounds-
I've got a hard time understanding how these.
It's okay, we can.
I've
show
been
you,
clicking
yeah,
and clicking and clicking and.
no problem.
Have
Yes, ma'am.
you tried Trello?
Yes, I use Trello at work and I like Asana a little bit more.
Okay, and that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
ask, okay.
Okay, go on, I'm sorry.
It's okay, not a
Oh, I
problem.
should have flipped the page over for the cost.
Yeah,
Didn't get there yet.
it's okay. Operations, we had 81 incidents through 9/13. I think as of tonight, we're up to 83 incidents. Attached in the packet were breakdowns of call types, rough locations, so broad district level divisions of which stations were to do those, and then personnel per call. The most troubling aspect of these reports, obviously, is the number of personnel per call. 2 people per call is far below the NFPA standard, even for rural agencies. Additionally, it's borderline on simple safety. It is important to know that 2 people per call is global. That is the average for the entire calendar year. It is not specific by incident type. So, for example, we do get more of a response on incidents such as fires or traffic accidents, et cetera, where quite frankly, it's more interesting to firefighters to show up. For mutual aid requests where there's not a lot of additional information, we'll often get much more limited response from the firefighters. So that's part of what's driving our numbers down. That said, we still have crashes where we have 2 or 3 firefighters responding, which is below the optimum number, or really even a good number.
How many firefighters are on, how many do you have right now?
We have, I believe, 15.
And you have 4 in training that are coming on.
Correct. They'll be online shortly,
Okay.
pending some additional training that needs to take place before they can go fully in service.
I have a question about the 81 incidents. Is that a combined? Because I did notice some of the stations, or at least it said Fairmont and it said Timberline.
That's correct.
So it is combined. not
It is
just
the-
those 2 Golden-
Every single tone Jefferson County Communications creates for Golden Gate Fire to now, that is 83X.
Okay, that would be part of those tones would be due to mutual aid.
That's correct. So, and that is why included in the the breakdown, this is attachment 3. It's specific by station. And what station was closest to you, starting with 32s, 5s, and 8s. That was only 4 incidents. Of the 81 incidents are out of district mutual aid type response. Yes.
Okay.
Chris, do you have any insights on whether there's areas of the district that have either longer response times or fewer numbers responding? We've had some questions from residents about, especially since we lost our resident firefighter at Station 2,
Sure.
that we are asymmetric in our response, that we're
Too heavy
not
on this side.
responding in a timely fashion, or no one's there to respond to incidents in the Station 2 environment. Is there data that helps us understand that?
I don't have that specific data in front of me right now. We can collect that data. Actually, we don't have to collect it. We just have to slice the data in emergency reporting to reflect that time by zone or time by station. So we have that ability to do it. And actually, as I scroll through, attachment 1 has that to a degree. So if we look at, based on the location of the incidents of 32s, 82, 81, 83, we have a average response time from dispatch to arrival listed by station. Looking at this simple list, the longest response time that we have is to the area closest to Station 82 at 23 minutes, 55 seconds average. Our turnout times, however, are still all relatively comparable, with them still being a little bit longer towards Station 82 as well. Turnout time.
And the numbers look reasonably comparable, numbers responding.
You know, I don't have that in front of me right now. That would be a combined analysis of the data that I don't have available.
So I'd say this has been a focused concern from the community this summer, and as you set long-term plans, personnel, those kinds of things, to be able to address that in a meaningful way would be useful. So that might be something to get up to speed on.
Yeah,
Certainly a resident firefighter at 82 would be a step in the right direction.
yes, it would. Okay. Continuing in operations, we have declined several mutual aid requests even over the last 15 days due to lack of personnel availability. We get only 2-3 firefighters click in as available. We do decline those aid requests simply because we can't effectively staff them or staff our district. Additionally, in operations, I'm working on a broad scale update of our standard operating guidelines. They've been kind of sitting for since before I started here. And that was 7 and 2 months ago. So it's probably time to do that. I've started with what I think are the most critical ones. There's a few in the hopper that aren't really final yet as drafts. The one thing to note is I've been circulating the drafts to the firefighters for comment prior to us finalizing them. So based on any comments we get back from the people who have to execute them, I want to make sure they make sense and there's nothing silly and no like, well, why on earth does it say this? That's silly. Why do that? I want their feedback before we make rules for them. I do
Those
have
be in
those.
a draft format until we have a full-time chief, or those be published.
I'm not comfortable publishing them because they're relatively straightforward. Like your uniform consists of a blue t-shirt and blue pants, and things like that. So obviously they're the way SOGs exist, they're an at discretion item, so they can be revised really at any time by the chief.
Okay.
So I just want to do a more robust revision cycle because I think it's appropriate.
Yes, thank you.
And if you would like the draft suite, I have them. I can send them to you if you really are interested. Some of them are very technical. If you want to learn about traffic incident management, so I'd be happy to get into
It's
it.
something, I mean, I don't know that I comment intelligently about it, being something nice to have and
Sure.
maybe good for the community to also know. as well.
Yeah, I think once they're in a final state, so we've completed a review cycle and made changes. It has long been my intent to add it on the website as a SOGs. So It is actually a firefighter one job performance requirement to be able to find SOGs and department policy. So
That was the other thing.
I want to make it
was gonna
very
ask
easy for them.
Was the department policy as well to be posted easily.
Yep. EMS made the decision, myself, Lieutenant Patton, have discussed, we're deciding not to make any changes to our medical direction and continue to work with Centura. We have a good positive working relationship with them. They continue to be medical direction for our transporting agency. And we've got a lot going on. So no change is probably okay. I have no objection to their service and what they provided.
Did their was it someone's medical director left?
Yes, so we have a physician director from Centura Hospital, pre-hospital services. Dr. James Soraya was our medical director provided by Centura. We will be getting a new physician assigned to us. I believe it'll be Dr. Branny, but I'm not certain about that. Dr. Branny, I believe, is the medical director for West Metro Fire and oversees the paramedic program as well as St. Anthony Hospital. Well respected as a trauma doctor, and my understanding, he's also pretty cool to work with and pretty cool to train with, which goes a long way with firefighters. So,
Cool. Well, somebody who no longer has the job of a treasurer, are they interested in being a medical director?
you know better.
That's not how it works.
I don't
You
even.
don't have time on your hands, Dave.
Centura
That's not how it works.
is a national level emergency services organization. We're lucky to be able to affiliate with them, and they provide it essentially at no cost.
Yeah.
Perfect.
None of that's going to be available from anybody else.
Yeah, so I have no objection to changing from world-class medical direction to continuing with world-class medical direction.
Chris, could you give me his last name?
Branny, BRANNY. No changes in our line staff to report. Training, simply, we have routine training, the membership continues with weekly trainings. Just worth noting, our training calendar in the summer is focused on the operations we are going to, we try and lead operations by about a month. So whatever is going to be coming in about a month, based on our knowledge and history of what occurs from a call volume wise, we try and lead that a little bit with calls or with training. So our focus in the springtime was on backcountry rescues and wildfires. And that continued with rope rescue continuing into the summer, doing more wildland work, et cetera, knowing that those calls are the next things people are most likely to see. As the weather cools down, the odds of people having those kinds of incidents decrease. So we are shifting focus incrementally back towards structure fires, interior odor investigations, EMS training, things like that. So trivia worth knowing. That's why our training calendar is seemingly periodic, where it's not always one thing. It's not a completely consistent pattern. It's an odd pattern, trying to lead our call volume so everyone's adequately prepared before they go out into the field, potentially the next day. That does happen. We are working, or I am working with Chief Bond at Timberline for the exterior academy that is planned for later this fall. That is going to be the new member orientation for our newest members that will complete their getting online training. Additionally, all those new members have completed a detailed and a self-study training program covering wildland fire, fire weather, traffic incident management, incident command, rope rescue, hike out calls, interior odor investigations, and I think that was it. It's something on the order of 20 to 30 hours of self-study. Obviously, everyone gets credit for it. We track that time and those count as training hours. But those are the online classes before we get to the in-person classes to be at a point where we're comfortable with having them get on a truck and be an effective responder. Planning and life safety. I've not been able to complete any inspections or plan reviews. It's just simply not within time, not within also my scope of experience and knowledge. It is a question I have for the board as to how we would like to manage that. The staff recommendation, as I have laid out, is to consider outsourcing these permit reviews to either Golden, Fairmount, or potentially Timberline. Each of those agencies has the expertise to do it. I have not reached out to any of those agencies because I've wanted to obtain just a general consent before starting that process. Because, you know, we start discussions that may get serious really fast. So I wanted to get your comfort before I start those.
Which are the inspections,
Driveway inspection.
which are the inspections, permits, and that's what you have here, that you're referring to,
Driveway sprinklers,
indoor sprinklers and hose.
correct?
I would suggest that we make that an agenda item for the next meeting.
Okay.
So we've got some stuff on the agenda today.
Do you
Do you
have
have
these
things
on?
pending? Are there people waiting for?
Yes, there are pending permits in place. Right now.
How many?
I think it's single digit number. But still. it's-
Are we critical path?
I'm not sure.
And this is something that, are these particularly difficult? Do you know, are you familiar with the specifics of the permits that are pending?
I am not, and I do not hold expertise or scope of knowledge to be able to comment on anything other than driveways. As that is where my professional licensure is limited. I have no knowledge, expertise, licensure, or certification to comment on permits, fire suppression systems, or anything of that nature in a permit review context.
Okay, I'd like to add that, not that long ago, the inspections were limited to pretty much like burn permits in the winter and driveway access. And the sprinkler systems is something that's fairly recent with Chief DeFeo. So there were no sprinkler inspections before. I was clear in when I ran for the board that I was against indoor sprinklers. I think they're expensive.
Let's keep it.
I
general.
understand. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to understand how we're gonna help the people who are waiting to build their house.
Yeah.
And they need this stuff done.
That's
How
what
What
do
are
you-
your checks on pricing for now, for the fees to pay someone?
Yeah, there's already a fee schedule in place, I believe, for these inspections.
Correct.
So who was doing the sprinkler inspections before?
I believe it was an ad hoc arrangement. I'm not sure if there was a billing arrangement between Chief DeFeo and I believe Fire Marshal at Fairmount.
Okay.
I'm not certain on that. I believe that was the arrangement that existed, but again.
What I would say is run to ground what we were doing in the past and
That's
Con-
what's
continue.
happening.
okay.
Especially if there was any degree of complexity or time sensitivity
Mhm.
that Daniel couldn't meet, he was outsourcing. And I think that's a good
Yeah.
general concept with all that Chris has on his plate
Yes.
as well.
Let's
Okay. Would
continue.
you-
What is a summary of what you just said, that you're gonna outsource it?
We're
He's gonna
keep
reach
doing what
out
we're
to,
doing.
like he's saying, he's gonna reach out to either Golden or Fairmount.
Really? So we're gonna bring a outside district into our district to do
We're
inspections?
gonna
I'd like
bring a
to believe-
professional
Yes.
who has the knowledge of how to do these inspections and does them
Is
regularly
certified.
and has the certifications to complete the task and make sure that.
Because
people-
I think you're asking for problems.
I think
What's the alternative?
Yeah.
Steve?
Well, just
Chris
let
does-
me back it up.
Yeah.
Is that how we did it before? Did we have problems before?
No.
Okay,
But that, how we do it before, it was only for a short period of time. It wasn't for that long that had been going on.
5 years is a short period of time, in a geologic timescale, but
No, it's short in time scale too. It's one board.
And it didn't cost us.
Yeah.
anything.
that we're taking.
I don't know the exact solution, but
Okay, so here's what I'd like to say. Let's just proceed with how we have in the past for now. If we'd like to have a further discussion, let's put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Is that okay?
Yes.
Well, we have a lot of other stuff. This wasn't on the agenda, so I'm just like,
understand.
yeah, I think maintaining status quo for the time being is not gonna hurt us and it will probably help out people waiting for permits. That's all.
See what you can find out.
Yeah.
yeah, I'll start with Fairmount if that's the easy continuation. Based on if Fairmount doesn't have the capacity to handle it, I'll reach out to Golden. And then continue on Golden's capacity, we'll look for Plan C.
Okay.
Okay.
My concern is what I hear from people that have talked to me about these inspections and that they felt they're being held hostage to certain unfair requirements.
Steve, can I ask kindly that we put it on the agenda for next meeting? I don't know that if it's been happening for the last 5 years, I don't know that waiting 1 month is going to cause that
That's
much
fine.
deleterious harm.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Right. Finally, on logistics, as you mentioned earlier, Lieutenant Patton's working with Fastenal to start to streamline some of our kind of general O&M stuff. And Lieutenant Phillips has been working with the auxiliary to really kind of refresh and maintain our shift operations and kind of some of our other general operations supplies. My gratitude extends to the auxiliary as usual for their help in making sure our guys have some food and making sure we take care of those basic needs of our shift firefighters. So I thank them for that time and both financial and personal support.
I saw the pictures of the really cool bags that just went out. It was in tools. Oh my gosh.
Right. Important, genuinely meaningful logistical changes
Yeah.
that will help our operations, and
Absolutely.
by keeping our firefighters comfortable, that helps operations very dramatically too. With that is the general context of my report. If you have any specific questions or any follow-up questions, please feel free to let me know. I'd love to handle them.
Chris, long-term firefighter, 3-year employee, Mitsu Bins, indicated to me she submitted to you her resignation, and I was going to ask that. Gave you a letter of and to the board on her need, rationale and need for resigning, and had discussed how you wanted to handle that. Did you want to comment or?
I'm gonna interject here. I don't, and maybe it's I don't think it's appropriate to put the chief in the position to read that letter. I do believe, I do think it's appropriate for it to be read. And I think that a board member could read it, but I don't think that the chief should have that imposed upon him to read the letter. Is that okay?
Well, I was asking his opinion.
Yeah, I'm just
So
trying to
I
spare
didn't
him
even-
from
I didn't
having
even-
to
I didn't
answer
get
the
a chance
question.
to hear that.
Yeah.
You did interject in our line of questioning.
Yeah.
If he would prefer not to represent his employee and colleague, I'm sure we'd be happy to.
I'm trying to spare him from having to make that decision. Did we lose Sam?
They just went downstairs.
Okay, all right.
So I didn't hear anything over
No.
the leash. I would actually appreciate Dr. Kennard if you would be able to read the letter just from a.
Sure. I'll be happy to. I've written to, this is dear board members, I've written to interim chief Enright to let him know I'm resigning as the administrative assistant effective 14 September 2022. This letter outlines my reasons why I no longer wish to serve this board. More accurately, President Kirby, Vice President Elbawari, and Secretary Green. I provide you with perspectives as an employee, a firefighter, and a resident. I've been an employee since 19, a firefighter since 11, and a resident since 11. As an employee, I could not help but be disappointed with the decision this board made to terminate Chief DeFeo. I believe this situation was poorly handled, and I no longer feel confident the above members mentioned of this board can act without prejudice. Your conflict resolution process is broken. There was no atmosphere of accountability and support, no open dialogue, or even inclusive communication with every board member and Chief DeFeo. Addressing sensitive issues takes skill and courage, and I hope you develop this ability before the next perceived crisis occurs. Your effectiveness in addressing concerns is flawed, since both the residents of this community and our volunteer firefighters spoke in strong favor of keeping our current and much respected chief, and you ignored it. The fallout of your decision has created mistrust and divisiveness, neither of which are conducive to the cooperation and problem solving. I joined GFPD 11 years ago as a volunteer firefighter, and until Chief DeFeo arrived, I served under more chiefs than I had years of service as a firefighter. Chief DeFeo provided the first real stability the department has ever known. I remind you that he was hired to lead the fire department, whom you heard at the special board meeting most firefighters implicitly trust. Furthermore, he was chosen for the depth of his experience and sits on the board as your subject matter expert, not your yes man. The chief had always had three main goals: people first, safety and well-being of the firefighters and people we serve; two, infrastructure; and three, our community's future Your method and reasons for termination were unusual, to say the least. I have multiple decades serving this country. Parentheses, she retired as a commander in the Navy. Serving this country, and with multiple tours under my belt, I can say with confidence that you know you're a good leader if your troops follow you. Firefighters who serve their communities are no different. We're required to operate under extremely high levels of trust. Our job is inherently dangerous and our lives literally depend on each other. Chief DeFeo earned our trust and we relied on him to see us safely through an incident so that we may return safely home to our families. Golden Gate firefighters and Golden Gate community members stood overwhelmingly united in articulating how important Chief DeFeo was to us, and you disregarded that. I wonder if you can understand how much damage that caused in our ability to trust you to make good decisions for our department and community. As a resident, I feel your decision has alienated the very people you exist to support. The relationships you've harmed, from firefighters to our mutual and auto A partners, adjunct staff, and community members, will not be easy to mend. You have a long road ahead of you to earn back the trust lost during what was, in the eyes of many in this community, a poorly reasoned and poorly executed power play with little thought for the consequences. Rather than a culture of respect, appreciation, and obligation to the community, you've created a culture of negativity and one that lacks transparency. It has been an honor serving this community and our firefighters as the administrative assistant, a position I regretfully am resigning from. I hope that this board transforms from this experience and we may look forward to a board that operates on mutual respect, cooperation, listens and serves, not the voices of the few or personal agendas, but rather our community at large. Our lives and our properties depend on it. Sincerely, Mitsu Banks. Thanks for allowing that to be entered into the record. I'll let her know that her thoughts have been heard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. We'll move on to community organization reports. Mary?
Yeah, sure. So the auxiliary is working on pig roast. I bought pork today, so we're gonna eat whether we do anything else. We have lots of lovely donations, which I would very, very much like to have you hear from our donation chairperson, Susan Ventry. And then I would like to have you hear also from Dee Dee. So my words are short. Come to pig roast, have a great time. We're depending on the firefighters to be there, as many as possible. Please encourage them to come. Please, Lieutenant, encourage your firefighters to come to pig roast and be together with the community. So Susan, you want to talk a little bit about the donations we are collecting?
Well, gathering donations is a difficult and lengthy job, but it is also a very easy job because volunteer firefighter are two magical words and open everybody's wallet. So we have lots of donations from all over Golden, from all over Evergreen, from Idaho Springs. We have some fabulous things going on. One of the firefighters has a wife who is a sporting goods rep. And so we have an inflatable raft. We have lots of clothing. We have sunglasses, bunches of really good stuff. Our beadwork, Indian beadwork artisan is donating an item that she is creating for us. We have artwork. We have dog toys. We have things from breweries. I don't know. It's just a vast number of items and assortment, and something for everybody. We'll have stuff for kids and women and men and fishermen. We also have a half-day guided fishing trip. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and so please encourage everybody to come. We also want to note that we really are hoping that the community will just understand that this event is for the firefighters. It is not for anything else, and we are not political as a group, and we just love getting safety gear and things that the firefighters need. We just spent $5,000 on stuff for the firefighters, and I think they're very happy with the things that they needed. A computer, a printer, some bags, some bunches and bunches of tools for every fire station. And that's what we're doing with our money, and we hope you'll come and enjoy it. And we hope that the firefighters will also do what they've done in past years, which is stand out on the road with a boot and collect from passersby. Because that's part of the money that we raise for you. And thank you very much for everything you do to help us. And we enjoy helping you.
Thanks. And Dee Dee, let's just talk a little bit more about the tools and things.
Yeah, so I've always worked with Sam and recently with Nate Phillips and Chris Enright. And I think a collaboration between the three gave us a early Christmas wish list, which Susan kind of highlighted on. So we did just spend $5,000 on what they had requested they needed for their stations, that they needed for their personal guides, their bags, whatever. So we did meet those needs for them and delivered those to Nate. We have 3 Milwaukee tool sets that are roughly $700 a bag for each station, still waiting to come in from Home Depot. So
Sure. Yep.
that's still to come.
Sounds normal.
And your computer is still to come.
Sounds normal.
So just, encourage you guys to keep the lines of communication open with the auxiliary. We're here to serve you. That's what we go out and dig extra pockets out of, besides taxpayer dollars, for you guys. And we want you to spend it. So just keep those lists coming.
All right, that was list 1. We've got 3 more.
Well, you know my emails.
Absolutely.
And also, so I think you guys hadn't had meetings in a while or something. So if I can get with you guys and find out your schedules so we can make sure you're fed for those meetings and nobody's passing out in them and all that good stuff, want to keep your bellies full. So I'll get with you guys on that. Appreciate you guys working with me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to the auxiliary, on the fundraising issue, with the budget in play. Just to put a idea in there, one thing that's worked well in other communities is if the board, the budget, the district decides, for example, a replacement fire engine is going to be a priority, that can even used, run to $250,000. Using that as a fundraising thing, hey, let's get this done. And it's probably a little early in our budget and late in our fundraising process to have it for this year, but some big ticket items may be coming up. So maybe working together to muster support for those kinds of things that would definitely strain our budget.
I don't think the community has any problem in helping their firefighters in their needs. So
Buy a truck.
yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Kind of truck.
Fred, you just.
Fred.
You just listed a type 3 and type 6 for utilities.
All right.
Let's talk.
That's all right.
The Grange have a report, Terry?
Yeah, October 1st, Big Rose, we're prepping the range for that. Traffic's always a problem. We've reached out. Chris will reach out to you in a couple of days about some timing. We're getting tents from the Phillips. I need all the chairs, all the tables from both stations, same routine, but we're going to do it a little earlier, maybe Wednesday at your training before that. But we'll coordinate that later.
We did talk to Nate, sorry. We did talk to Nate to talk to
And
him.
he said he's gonna mention it
Yep.
at your.
We
Wednesday
talked,
night
and we're on
meeting.
track. Yep.
So very good. And let's see here. So that's awesome. Great community support. They want to help. Also, they've reached out to the Grange and the auxiliary and on the community about helping with the station. So later on, when you get settled, we've got a list of people that have already stepped up and want to do whatever you need at the station. So we'll take care of that. Waste management is no longer in our district. I met with the Western rep today at the Grange. They are going to fill the orders. It does not affect our commercial for Station 3 and the Grange, that shared container, but they're out of here. They're gone. So everybody's shifting to Western. It's been a big issue on the internet and my phone's been ringing, and to have the sales rep show up at the Grange today was kind of cool.
He went there already, they're out of Boulder, they're a longtime company, mom and pop kind of thing. And they're ready to bring
50
containers
years.
up here, 50 years in business out of Boulder, so. I hear that we're not getting too much from Republic, up here in the community, but again, back to waste management, we should be good with Station 3. I've got my fingers crossed, yeah. And then let's see here, oh, and waste management, since we shared the container. Since November of last year, we have sent you guys 3 different $400 checks to be cashed for our percentage of sharing that container. Well, they got lost. They never were cashed. So this last board meeting, it was announced at our Grange board meeting that the check is finally cashed.
Oh,
So we are now up to speed with you guys, but just a heads up, your administration piece, since last November, 3 checks have been lost, or 2 checks were lost to you guys. And it wasn't until the 3rd one was sent, that it was cashed. So it took 6 months.
Up our books.
6 months for you guys to cash a Grange check, just a heads up on that admin piece, so.
Well, part of the problem was that someone stole the mailbox, not just the mail, but stole the box. So the mail person up here said she was gonna hold our mail, and when we went down to check it, it was never there. So the 3rd time, finally, I think we hand delivered a check.
Yeah, I think Susan gave you one. or
Why was
something.
the
Jane,
PO box?
Jane Bruce did.
Yeah,
How come we didn't say before the sent to the PO box?
it was.
It was sent to the PO box, but they delivered it here. And I don't know why. One of them, a couple of them, the first 2, I think, did go to the mailbox,
Mailbox or PO box?
the mailbox. Then it went to the.
I'm
Then
patient.
it went. We're on track, it's finally there. So
It's done, so.
We're glad, and we look forward to sharing that, we'll pay you at the end of this year for this year's. Starlink, we just got approved for Starlink. We are getting our equipment this next week. We will have internet at the Grange finally. It's huge, yeah. Station 3 got their internet. I think Sam, you hooked it up, what, a month and a half ago? So that's half working in the Grange, but it's important to keep those 2 separate in case you guys ever need a lot of internet. Hopefully you don't, but there you go. That's it for the Grange.
thank you.
Mhm.
Public comment? Oh, I'm sorry, Julie.
Regarding that. With the bank account, are we able to accept electronic payments?
Oh, wire probably.
Well, not a wire.
You mean a
but
photo of the check?
Electronic payments.
Standard
I mean,
EFT, yeah.
in theory, yes. For example, we get our tax payments on a monthly basis electronically.
That might be something to look into.
That's an ACH, right?
Yes.
But they have another thing where people take a photo of a check and deposit it.
Well, yeah.
And that generally doesn't work for commercial. I don't know about nonprofits.
That does work for it does work for the fire
We
department.
just found that out.
But we'd still need the physical check. So we have to. We're good. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Next on the agenda is public comment. If anybody wishes to speak.
I would like to move that we restrict this public comment to 20 minutes with a possible addition of 10 more minutes and individual comments, 2 minutes apiece. And we want to accommodate everybody, but it is getting late and there's another public comment afterwards. So if we can just try and move quickly, can I get I guess I move that we restrict this first section to 20 minutes with 2-minute comments from the public. I'll second that. Any discussion on that?
Could we see a show of hands of how many folks would like to?
Yeah, how many folks would like to speak?
One.
Two?
No, not me.
Oh, okay, sorry.
One.
Okay,
It's
all right.
moot point.
Okay, yeah, all right.
How about it?
So unless he talks for 20 minutes, is that what you said?
No, 2 minutes.
He's got time. We'll
Yeah.
just start a timer and
My name's Tim Preister, and I just want to say to Dave and Sheila, I'm very sorry to hear your news. I'm sorry to see you and Mitsu go. But I think I understand, especially given recent current events. Who can blame you? I don't think I have to go into the events. Mitsu very well articulated it. But at any rate, thank you very much for your service. That's all.
Anybody else? Oh,
I would
Susan?
also, thank you. I would also like to say I'm heartbroken that Sheila and Dave are leaving the board. I also understand, but they are highly appreciated. I'm listening to Dave and his treasurer's report,
I know.
pretty cross-eyed. But thank you very much. Thank you very much, and I hope that you will still hang out and be helpful, but anyway, yes, thank you. That's it.
thank you.
Nobody else? We'll move on to old business. I feel like I'm deja vu all over again. The tender that's at Timberline Station 8. Do we
Not
have
at
an up?
Timberline, it's at Station 2.
It's, I'm sorry,
I thought we had
station.
that established.
Oh,
Yeah, that was already.
Done,
that was-
done,
oh,
Yeah.
wow, yeah.
check.
Check.
It was done last month.
Okay, thank you.
There's remodel, I think there's some other work happening at Timberline Station
Yeah.
on South Smith Hill, so it had to move anyway. And that has taken place, it's at Station 2.
Thank you.
Did you push it?
Yeah, did you have to push it up? Who drove? Sam, did you drive
Sam's
it?
the only one who can.
I drove, maybe followed.
And he followed?
Ryan pushed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it holds water, right? So it's there. It does hold water.
It does.
Doesn't hold oil. but it holds
No,
water.
yeah, well.
It's that old school self-changing oil.
I have, the next item is a resident firefighter at 82, which I'm sure is on your list. We don't need it.
Yes, I understand there was discussion in progress with the Jefferson County Ranger who was interested. I'm not
I
aware
haven't
of
heard
where those
anything.
went. So
I think that might probably.
Yeah, we need a we need a certified.
Yep, certainly.
Yeah.
And I know he had several certifications. That's
Yeah.
common with a lot of the Rangers. So.
Yeah, just
Well,
it's on your
Yep.
your massive list.
Go
Thank
beat the
you.
bushes.
So I'm sorry, I didn't. So he's no longer interested, is that?
No, it just hasn't reached out anymore.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, sorry.
Do we want to reach out to him or?
Well, I never talked to him.
You never
directly.
talked to-
It was
okay.
through secondhand
Not
to
sure
another
he's-
ranger that mentioned the possibility of it.
Okay.
That's where.
That's all. If you work on an application or do your little magic with your whisper campaign. The website, Sheila, the email list has I've never gotten it.
That's,
Can,
Well, I made you an administrator in Gmail, so you should just be able to go into the administrative console now and
I
do
tried that.
a send, like you're gonna
Okay.
send it to
Yeah.
yourself.
Okay,
And then in the BCC, put in district email list and it should
I'm taking
populate.
this down, Niffy, because it's, I did try and got nowhere, but then I
There's
forwarded her
there's a
instructions.
list that I had created that's just contact list, names and emails.
But nobody can get to that.
We can't get
After
to
we
it.
took you out of it. And I could only send,
Yeah.
and it published everybody's email list, so.
well, I mean, we will figure out the admin thing and
Right.
I'll work with you on trying to get that. But Sheila, you did make her an admin.
did.
Okay. And we'll go
Okay.
from there. For me, I had a question about additions to the email list and if we could like put a widget on the website for people who are interested in signing up for getting communications and things like that.
There used to be,
It used to be when I first started looking at it, And then it was no longer, so
Okay.
we do need to do that.
So there's our $115 website maintenance guy.
I mean, I
That
can
sounds
do
like
that.
that feature didn't get carried over from the old site, but since we're paying for it.
Right.
Well, none of the
It's a-
documents are there either. They all have lines
Yeah,
through them.
I did get those. Some, I think
So
Mitzi
you
was
can't
able,
click on anything.
right. I'll have to look.
Can
Mitzi
I
did
ask
send
a
those.
question about the email list real quick? When I try to send a big email, MSN denies it as spam. Does Gmail have a limit on the number of emails you can have on your list?
I just,
If I can comment on it, if it's set up as a group, then there is no limit. I think groups may be limited to like a thousands kind of range. But as a group, it functions differently, so the action is you have subscribed for it, so therefore you're getting it. So it bypasses some of the spam mechanisms by being attached to a Google group. At least that's my experience having worked with Google groups for a while now.
Thank you. Sheila, can I ask you, when you were talking about putting Deb on admin, was that a Google Workspace?
It's just the email, it's the Golden Gate email platform, which are
Gmail.
Which is the Google
email that we
Workspace,
use. So I set her up as admin.
Thank you.
Next item is Steve's item for valid A again.
Right. Again. Well, anybody who knows me knows I was concerned with that ballot issue A vote. I believe it should be put up for a revote. It only won by a single vote. I
Two,
don't
actually.
think. What?
it's actually two.
No, I don't
It
believe
was
so.
two.
It was two. I looked at it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
two, well,
Well, it's a small number. Sorry.
1, 2, 1, 2, what?
I think that in the past, there's other district members that feel the same way. In the past, we trusted our district members to represent, they had taxation with representation. And now that's not the case. It's just this 5-person board who can raise taxes. And, this country, we've had a Boston Tea Party over this. Where they're taxing people without representation, and I think this has happened again here. When the vote went down, it was mostly discussed as the Gallagher Amendment, which hardly anybody could understand. I remember there was a lot of confusion in the room. So
What do you recommend?
I recommended if we're gonna have an election, and it seems like we're going to have an election
May.
where the vote's gonna be made, that if you put back in the ballot, it won't cost very much additional, and let people decide if they were happy with that. A lot of the ballots were sent to the wrong place. I know at least 10 ballots.
Not having an election until next year.
I know, but that's what best we can do. We're not gonna have another one right now. Gotta kind of compromise.
Well,
And if we're having one, that would be the time to put it on the ballot, because rather than spend an extra 6,000 or 7,000.
I think
or
we can
maybe
look
8.
into it, but I don't think you can do.
you can't tag it on.
You can't tag it on.
has to
When
be-
can you tag
It
it
was
on?
in November.
There's,
It has
it's like
to
a
be
Colorado
November.
law, if you're doing like anything for revenue, it has to be a November election and not a May election.
Have to be November. This is just
So then it should
strictly
be
a
next November.
district elect. Well, then. have it.
And I will verify what you just
Well,
said.
yeah, we can, it's my understanding that that's how it works.
That's right.
Yeah,
So,
So I'm just bringing it up because it was in my campaign. I've had people discuss it with me. There's been a lot of people unhappy with that result. A lot of ballots were sent into the county. It wasn't that clear. There was no polling place until the last couple of days of the election where ballots were going to be dropped off. There was no place you could vote at. But after community pressure, a polling place was open like 2 days before the due date of the ballot. It just didn't go down fairly. So
would you be a committee of one to pursue that?
I will keep pursuing this.
Okay.
I'll investigate more. I wasn't aware that you couldn't do it in
No.
May. Well, it sounds like you're convinced you checked on this, so maybe.
We talked about that. at the
Yeah,
We talked about it the last
Sheila-
meeting, that's what we said,
Sheila-
let's wait, because we can't do it until later anyway. I do think that we should try and solicit community input about whether or not we spend $10,000 on it.
No, that's not my, I don't want to spend 10,000 on it, but.
That's what
then
it
again,
costs to do an election.
Well, look at the mess we got into.
Well, I don't know that we're in a mess.
I do.
I'm
I
just
think we are. We took people's rights away.
so,
It's up to the board to decide whether
Whether we
they need
raise-
to flex the rate anyway.
yes. So,
No, it used to be up to the vote.
well, so Steve, like,
It's up to
I
the
think we
board.
should wait and we can.
Okay, you made your point.
No,
I got your point.
allow
You
me
don't
to-
really want to deal with this.
please allow me to make my point. Is that okay? I think that there is an election, it only won by 2 votes, but it was an election, so that people chose to delegate that to the board. The board still has to actually make a change, and they can't actually raise taxes.
No.
All they can do is change the mill levy to maintain the actual taxes that are there.
I don't believe that's the way it's worded, although I keep hearing this.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but like,
That's right.
but hell, if it is illegal and there is a future board that does raise it beyond the actual basis, that'll get thrown out in court, like,
We've reviewed this quite a bit between Linda and I and Linda's husband,
okay.
and it doesn't seem that way at all. It's written very open.
Yeah.
So I don't agree with your evaluation.
Oh, well, I mean, we'll do another public comment. I just, the way I will always preface, I am no lawyer. But the way I read it was like, hey, you can't raise the taxes.
Why don't we speak to them?
Well,
We did speak to an
We
attorney.
did.
if you're raising the mill levy,
Not raising the mill levy.
that's what it said.
It is not raising the mill levy.
It's about, what
It
is it
is,
raising?
well, it adjusts to maintain the current revenue. It doesn't allow you to increase your
Well, how do
revenue.
you do that if you don't raise the mill?
It's the, was it that?
It does allow you to raise taxes for any reason.
Yeah.
It says it
does.
very clearly in there, no matter what everybody in the room is saying right now. I've read it over and over. I believe Linda has too.
Yeah, yeah.
And if not, we can have an open debate on this
Yeah.
sometime.
Well, Sheila, you have that
Analyze it.
contact from the paralegal that assessed whether Gallagher
Yes,
was right.
they are.
One at a time, please. Yeah, Sheila did come back with a legal opinion that it was still in effect, I believe.
They said we still, even though there were sort of 2 parts to it, the Gallagher part was
Gone.
separated. But the way the amendment was stated and the way it still stood, the board did still have the ability to flex it if they so desired or needed to, which nobody's done since
Oh, I
that
know nobody's
election.
done it, but you know, it's like having a little. And at one of the meetings, 2 meetings back, the chief made it quite clear that he had no remorse at using that for other reasons. He stated that quite clearly 2 meetings back.
Well, then, okay,
It's not up to the chief.
it's not up to the chief.
Not on the board, it didn't have a vote.
That's
And
It was-
there is also another recourse that can happen at a regular board of election or regular election for the board of directors. If there were a board that were to do something like raising tax and you didn't like it, you vote them out.
Your board
Next
raised the mill levy 3
Okay,
years in a row.
That's
Okay.
true.
All right.
Dave,
Well,
we raised the mill levy. like
Yes, you
Sheila
did.
says.
Yes, you did.
Dave, you were on
Merrick
the board.
Reheist has a copy of.
That's not true. That's a lie.
All right.
No, it's not.
All right. Well,
Hey, no.
let's revisit it again. Let's do some more investigation and then let's come back to it. Is that okay?
Yes, well,
And either in public comment or now, I know Linda's been
Linda.
having a dialogue on this for a while and has done some research, so we'd love to hear her thoughts as well.
Are we okay with Linda going? Do you have something written too?
I could do that.
Yes,
I could
that would be fantastic.
Next meeting,
Yeah, or send it to us, bring it up at the next meeting. If you have something you want to talk about right now, like 2 minutes would be great, like,
Okay.
yes, if that's okay.
Well, from what I understood from the Lawyer's interpretation, that even though Gallagher is done, that can be used to, if the assessments go down, that valid aid can be used to adjust the mill levy to maintain the same revenues.
Yes.
We all know valuations go up and down, mostly up.
We don't ever see them go down all that much.
They went down this time.
I'm assuming that, okay, we say that the assessments go down. You adjust the mill levy up. Next year, the assessments go up. I don't think you'd probably adjust the mill levy down, so it's just kind of like a compounding, hit.
Could be.
It could
And
be.
I just think
Yes.
that it should go back to voters get a say. I think, like everybody's always said, this community is very supportive of firefighters. And if they need more money, put it to a vote and get the mill levy raised. But this,
Let's do that.
being able to adjust it just based on what evaluations are going up and down.
Well, I think and I want to move on. I'm sorry to delay because I keep talking. I think the point of that was, hey, the evaluations are going to be going up and down. This allows a board to it's never going to drop 50%, but it did drop, what was it, 1.5 percentage points or 1.25? So there will be lower revenue this year. What this allows us to do is to just get right back to the same funding level. And you would hope that you have a board that if it goes back up, they reduce the mill levy accordingly. And if your board doesn't do that, you vote them out. That's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
Because
I just think, it should go back to the voters.
okay.
This constant adjusting up and down based on, where the
Who happens to
valuations
be
go
on
from
the
year to
board.
year.
We haven't adjusted it.
No, but
Cost of living rates, so to speak.
It's not even, it's you're losing money, you're against inflation, because we're gonna cap it at the revenue level. It doesn't say the revenue increases with inflation, it's capped at that revenue level from ballot issue A. So- Sorry, Spider.
So, Linda, I think one thing that's missing is the historical context. Flashback to 2018, when Gallagher rates were changing, residential assessment rate were changing for the first time in over a decade.
Right.
And that was in response to the accelerating appreciation of property values in the
Right.
front range.
Right.
That acceleration did not happen in the rural, western slope and mid-state districts. And so there was actually, this wasn't a theoretic concern. About 25% of rural fire districts had not 1%, but large unplanned decreases in their revenue.
And
So
that's what the people voted for.
that's what the intent.
Gallagher's gone.
And exactly, so there's language in there, which, as Steve and Sheila pointed out, with the input from the attorney, we had language in there pointing out that in particular, this was set up for Gallagher. The attorney, thanks to your question, said, you could make an interpretation that independent of Gallagher, you still might be able to do that. That wasn't, of course, the intent. The worry was if the front range property explosion dropped our budget by 25% and we couldn't afford the chief or whatever, we'd have a short-term mechanism to maintain safety. That was it. And just like old laws about when you can whip your slave are probably no longer relevant. In our mind, when Gallagher went away the next year, we wasted all our money on the election, but it was an insurance policy, short-term, and ultimately incompletely designed. It should have somehow sunsetted or be tied more specifically to Gallagher, but that was the intent.
It was also incompletely explained, and it was also rushed through.
they were panicked.
Just one moment.
There were.
No, one moment. I'm hoping that was just a really unfortunate analogy that you chose to use there.
All right, we've talked.
Dave's comment about.
Archaic laws.
There are a lot of arcane blue laws there. That was a very particular one that you chose to use there. And I hope that was just a thoughtless remark.
We're using your whatever.
Dave, I
Archaic
think
stuff.
he's saying you owe him an apology.
Well, I certainly apologize. I understand my intent was to indicate that we're dealing with something that we thought was.
And there are 1,000 other ways that you could do that.
Amen. Okay.
Apologize for any misinterpretation.
Question, not public comment.
No,
That's okay. Hey, Steve, you were accused of raising the mill levy 3 times. Can you expand on it, please?
Yes, the accountant had inadvertently, we didn't know it. He was keeping something balanced in his books and slowly raising the mill levy, which we then caught.
No, you didn't catch it.
Okay, would you let me speak, Sheila, or would you like to speak for it? Sheila will speak for me.
Maybe
Sam.
Sheila can talk about her email bashing a firefighter / resident. Can you do that since?
Look, I can finish though,
That's all
Sam.
the board's done is attack me,
that's,
and I'm sick of it. And I'm glad you guys are gone. My personal opinion, since you guys read that page,
Sam,
attack
All right.
these 3 people.
Point,
That was disgusting. So
point
Steve,
of
how did you get accused of raising the money?
Well, there was quite a big political divide between Sam Patton's board and some of the other boards here. So obviously we're capitalizing on this political and philosophical divide in the district. Our accountant, I think his name is Phil, inadvertently, or I don't know if inadvertently, he was doing something we were unaware of, which is very small. It went up about $500,000 when it got caught. And it was no conscious discussion or effort on the part of the board. We caught it. I don't even think we caught it. It was on their board when I saw it, if I remember correctly. And we said, hey, you guys are raising the mill.
okay, this is all old business. If
It was all
there's
Yeah,
record,
but when there's accusations.
I
let's take them
know.
up, okay?
I know, I'm just like, Sheila's
Well, what I heard
resigning,
It was a mistake.
yeah.
And it got down and the
They
people
got-
got their money
And
back.
Sam,
And
you
the
made sure
board
people got
is
the money back, right?
responsible for making mill levy rates and filing the appropriate documents with DOLA, which they did not do for 3 years.
We did.
Well, yes, we did.
No, you didn't.
Yes, we did. We
No,
always
you didn't.
filed.
I have to go back.
Point of order here, come on, like, can you?
Well, we are volunteers. We could have made a mistake.
The mill levy rate went up
Okay.
to 12 from 9.01.
Well,
You go back and look at your.
All of that is public record, so you can't dispute it, yeah, all right.
But you were.
Go back and look. I was.
Mr. Roger,
Well, you were.
On the
Mr.
board
Roger.
that had to fix it.
Okay.
we're not even in public comment, but,
Appreciate that. One.
Yes.
Agenda.
yes,
Steve started by addressing item B or whatever.
ballot issue A.
valid.
Issue A. Okay. I heard Steve made 3 points that 2 were being addressed. One was the results of the election should be returned to the people who let a vote. That's one that's been discussed. The second was who can do what when, Gallagher amendment, who can raise, who cannot raise middle levy. That was also been discussed. The third was items around the process for the election. Who got communicated to, who didn't, who got ballots, who didn't get ballots. Where were the ballot boxes? Were there ballot boxes? Who oversaw the election and the count, that issue? That third issue is something that the board can do. What are the processes and procedures for the next election, whenever it occurs? Okay.
Make sure that
Whether it occurs
doesn't
next year. So I would certainly suggest that that is an actionable item to make sure that the next election process, whenever it occurs, is one that is defined, specified, and agreed to by the board.
Well, these things do exist, Dave. But when things get rushed through, they get shortcutted. And I do believe that vote got rushed through and shortcutted. There wasn't a lot.
Well, it's already there, we can,
Yes.
yes. Do you know if there's any way to do like in the same way, like I don't know, a petition for a ballot issue?
You have to reach out to Jefferson County.
okay.
And they usually publish a timeline and then you can reach out to them. There is a way sometimes to piggyback on something with Jeffco, and then it does cost a little less.
Okay, that's the only thing is I want to make sure that there's,
That's a November. issue.
right, like 300 people want to do this in order to, before we spend the money. I mean,
Oh, believe me, I don't want to spend money on this.
I know.
I'm just suggesting election processes and procedures.
I have a lot of issues with the election processes and procedures.
Should be before the next. That's what.
Agreed.
Make a brief comment.
Maybe bringing in an election official too.
Yes.
She's run it and, is there data that ballots being mismailed?
That's all public.
That
It's-
kind of
yeah.
stuff. She should be able to comment.
So how about we put it on the February meeting minutes?
Or earlier than that.
Well, the only reason I say February is because we're in October next month and then Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Right,
So-
it's just, it's May is when the election is, so I want to
Oh,
make
is
sure.
it May?
Yes,
Oh,
so,
Susan, yes, Susan.
sorry, Susan?
There are documents you have to file in January.
Okay,
Just be released.
you're doing those, right?
put it on next month's meeting minutes.
We'll try.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it, I've written it down. Susan?
I think Suzanne Dentry has some.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I would like to say is this board is not going to vote to raise the mill levy, so it's a moot point. So why are we wasting our time? It's
not a moot
stupid.
point.
I'm sorry.
I don't
We just need to quit this and move on with the rest of the.
Steve, can we go on to the
We
next
can
item?
go on, but I don't believe it's. moot.
Okay, you're gonna do more research.
All right.
I'll check with the clerk about elections.
Okay.
All right.
We have, the next item is again, something from the past. This was Steve's, item. This pesky conflict of interest, from the past, when a resolution was made that allowed firefighters to serve as board members in our district.
Okay, in the past, I believe it was in a policy manual, firefighters were not supposed to be on the board. However, there was a document created and signed by a past board member that allowed that to happen. And that created many complaints over the last 2 years. Probably almost at every single meeting, and even led to the conflict of interest being on this agenda continuously. And there are people in this room who felt that was not appropriate because it led to a situation that your employee's boss and your employee's your boss, and it's very hard to separate that. It was a conflict of interest having firefighters on the board. So
Yeah,
there are multiple people in this room who always brought that up. I think it should be reinstated. That I think that exception should not exist. As was created, an exception was created for that to exist. And I think we should go back to the way it always was. That's what I was.
okay.
And I would like to make a motion that we create a document that retracts that exception that was made. And I haven't read that recently, but
Do you want a copy?
sure.
Anybody like to see the resolution that was,
Did this have a sunshine date on it or a sunset date?
no,
It had a sunset of 6 months on it, and it was supposed to be reevaluated since the viewpoint, it's gone.
So, okay, the firefighters are not to serve on the board at this moment.
6 month evaluation, right there on that resolution, everything.
so
My only point.
in your
if it's
opinion,
gone,
it's
gone.
null and void.
No, what? It was for half a click. Yeah, and it was only for 2 specific firefighters.
Very
also,
specifically
which also
named.
makes that known.
Yeah, the issue became, for those that aren't familiar with this, that it was in 2017 that this was enacted. Supposed to run for 6 months, and it only ended when Sam Patton dropped off the board and Dave Kennard resigned as a firefighter. And that took care of it, the two people.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm satisfied. Just wanted to bring it up. And I want to
Okay.
make sure that as we go forward, we know that that's the case.
Okay.
Thank you.
The only,
be a firefighter?
I would think-
I'd love to have you hop on a truck.
Sorry, for the board's perspective. There was a specific exception, not a
Yes.
change in bylaws requested and granted.
Right.
And the idea was that, and this has been faced by rural districts across the state, and it's getting worse. Volunteer manpower is going down. And so if you have qualified individuals that are willing to serve and work at the board level, as well as being in district responders to serve the fire department needs, that there is a compelling community interest that should be considered when looking at those applications for exemption. There is a built-in, and I don't have to elaborate, as you pointed, conflict of interest. So it has to be called out. There have to be safeguards. We tried. over the years to disqualify those serving firefighters from discussions of firefighter benefits, from chief compensation, all those things. We also put in that it could not be, it had to be a minority of serving board members so that
So
the firefighters couldn't just say, by the way, I think we need to budget ourselves,
for a truck.
a new whirly bird, what the heck, right? So there were safeguards put in with the intent of recognizing exactly what you point in, conflict of interest. I think if you look at the record, there were no actual conflicts identified where there were bad decisions made and I think if you look at the track record of the in-district volunteers, they represented a high percentage of the manpower responding to the district over 5 years. So in granting the exemption, I think the district made a wise decision. And I would just argue not to bias in favor of future applications should it ever come up.
Should ever come up again.
And Dave, your heart's in the right place, I know. And I'm sure what you say is you're gonna support it, but I did see things that did not. They were definitely conflict of interest, but I'll leave it at that. I don't need to go into detail.
Thank you, because it is a moot point,
Yes.
so.
Under,
And it should also be very clear that although it's done on a case-by-case basis, being a firefighter does not in any way preclude you from running for the board if you are in the district.
And you meet the.
And you meet the qualifications, yes.
Well, the policy manual says that.
Okay,
new business, under new business, the Gmail platform issues, I've had issues with them. Sheila, you're dropping off the board, so were you the administrator of the Gmail?
Sam initially was, and Mitsu, and I was just made an administrator.
Okay,
And then I just made
Okay.
you one, so.
I'll be
There
there
is-
is that. I know who to check with.
There is a super admin, so you can,
okay, you
You
can help
super
with that,
admin.
Julie? Okay.
And as I rapidly look at Gmail right now, I am able to log in to the administrator
Oh.
profile and the administrator console.
Okay,
So I have administration going as well.
oh, yay.
And can handle.
I don't know that.
I got,
Would you
yeah,
like a longer piece of paper?
yeah, I got,
That's why I use digital paper. It's.
I got concerned because I received an email recently on that platform about people that had slash in their yard and they wanted to know where to go.
Oh,
And I switched over to, I knew the Grange had the list and we had the list, and when I went back, it was gone. And I don't know who the people were and I felt guilty.
Your
that's
email-
I
the
have felt-
contact from the website that you're getting.
okay.
Yeah, I know, just the random junk mail.
Is that a different?
Thanks for that,
box?
Sheila. I love my junk mail in foreign languages. Yeah, so, okay, so we'll deal with that. You, me and Chris? Okay,
You have full access, Chris.
Yeah, so I can modify users.
and Julie,
Okay. We can work together and figure this out.
Okay, sounds good. I need your phone number after this. meeting.
Absolutely.
I just have a real brief mention of my personal interest in holding a mitigation workshop for our community at some later date. We're jammed up now, Chris, I know, but there's lots of really helpful people out there, firewise, everything. And I know one resident had reached out on Facebook, it was saying, I need some help with mitigation. Where do I go? What do I do? This is for the future, but I want you to know that that's something that I'm taking on as a cause to do in conjunction with the auxiliary, with the Grange, and with the board, and of course, with our firefighters having input, coming up with some kind of a workshop in the future.
If your resident is having financial issues as part of that application, I have some resources
Okay,
that we can talk about.
I know they're grants for help with mitigation. Steve, you've got just a quick update on your
I
meeting
know
with
we had,
planning and zoning, or has he done that? I'm
With
off.
core-
I'm sorry, core response, Dave.
Yeah.
So, we recently received a Cora Colorado Open Records Act, I believe is what that stands for.
Correct.
Request for, that was different from the kinds of requests that we've had for documents in the past. This was a request for emails, all our emails during a certain period of time. And these kinds of requests, I think, are becoming more common. And so it was, but we hadn't had one that I'm aware of in the past. What happened was that each individual board member and chief were left to figuring out, how do I do that? And what I'm hearing and talking to the person who requested it is that there was differing levels of response, some no response, some a lot of response, and still wading through the different formats. And I think that if it's basically up to the individual board member to censor, delete, decide what to send, that sort of defeats the purpose of asking what the board discussions were about a certain thing, if that's what you're looking for. And so I wanted to suggest, A, that it doesn't sound like we've met the law with an incomplete and inconsistent response to this first request. And secondly, Mitsu had done some research with a Gmail-based tool called Vault that can respond to these kinds of requests without individual board member involvement. All the people on the platform, the administrator says, we need all the emails between this date and that date, and it includes deleted emails. So it would be a complete record of what was said by who, when. Done. And so I just wanted to, A, point out some deficiencies in our current response, and B, suggest that there are low-cost alternatives to sort of faithfully respond to the intent of the core law.
And the point being, in the future, I think somebody needs to coordinate the response, because they should go to the document person, which was we designated before as the admin.
Okay.
And that person coordinates the response, gathers the data. It was either me or Mitsu.
Send it to the
And
person.
then we send it to the person, and then we kept a copy of that document on file with what we sent, so that we know when we've gotten core requests, we know when we responded, what was sent, and somebody signed off on it. We didn't meet the time request on this last one either. We have 36 hours
Right.
by law to do that, and we didn't meet that, I'm pretty sure.
36 hours, like
It's 3 business
3 days.
3 business days.
Okay. And there is a charge for this. I mean, would you have to have it on all the time?
Well, it's
Or it's
interesting.
just you activate it when you need it?
This is according to Mitsu's research, so it's a bit of hearsay, but her comment was this service, which was called Vault, become quite popular because of the nature of these requests, was free for the first month of service. So for a low volume, occasional actor like us, activating that free service, using it to respond to requests, and then if there's not another request for 5 years, you've got no out-of-pocket expense, but you still responded very nicely. Her quote, I think, was $5
Per user.
Yeah, 5 or 6.
So it's
So
not a high
I-
cost element, but it does respond to the intent of the law.
So just a couple things I'd like to do here really quickly is I would move to make our like interim admin the document administrator for the time being, and also that we take advantage of this free Google Vault for the next month and then revisit it afterwards. Is there a second for that?
Or for future
For
requests.
future, well, for future requests, I'm not sure, like, we have to decide if we're gonna keep using it. And I think if you cancel after month 1, then you come back 4 months later and redo it, it's not gonna be free again.
Google
So-
smart.
Yes.
Oh, it doesn't work that way.
I get my wine deliveries, but they figured me out for the introductory deal. They're not doing it
Actually,
anymore.
a way you could in Google Workspace that the person could go in and access the emails of each person for that time frame.
Yeah, that's the vault tool.
That's the vault.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
It's designed
I didn't know what it was
discovery.
called. I
Yeah.
didn't know it was in there somewhere.
Did you want to make a motion?
so yes, I'm moving that we explore it for a month and that we have Julie serve as our,
Second,
do we need any other discussion on that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Secondly, I'd like to move that we adopt a core request policy that mirrors that of the city and county in Denver insofar as charging for a core request. The state law allows us to charge up to, Denver's is 33, but the law that I read was $30 an hour for a document request. And that's after the first hour of an admin's time. So if we're getting these requests and we do use Google Vault and there's a cost for it, we at least have some sort of a mechanism to offset that. So we can maybe wait till the next meeting so we have a chance to meet it, but basically I'd like us to like mirror what the state law allows us to do, which is charging after the first hour, $30 an hour for complying with the core request.
have we charged in the past?
No.
But I think this kind of covers if someone requests an outlandish core request. I mean, by law, we have to give it to them, but this way they will have to pay if it winds up taking 10 hours.
Well, the law does say that we can charge for things like that. So there is that. We just have never had to do that before. So we didn't have that in our original policy.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying like, I don't know how much it cost you before, if it was only an hour for all the requests, but if, if we're gonna incur a cost of $5 or $6 per user per month, that is a cost. We may need to defray that, and I wouldn't like to see abuse of that system. But even it's not abuse to ask for a public record. So let's just allow ourselves to properly compensate for that, and that the district doesn't incur, the taxpayers don't incur all of that cost. I mean, there's the 25 cents a page as well, so.
So per user, you say, so that could be the last words too. So there could be like 10 users and 2 board terms, right? 5 last word. 5 last word, is that what the user would be?
No,
Or
I-
who would the users
Current
be?
users. Because the current person could get into the prior board's emails if they needed to, unless they were completely.
Yeah, how do you determine how many users are accept terms?
Well, that, we're
cost
gonna
per month?
explore that.
Yeah, I guess that we'll find out.
Just things to consider.
So
I'll
I,
put it on next month's
Okay.
agenda. And this,
so my understanding is it's users who have access to Vault, not users in the domain. Because users in the domain would be, you run the risk of,
Yeah.
for a large domain, that being millions of dollars a month, which is not the case. So my assumption is that it is users with that access turned on, because you pay, it's an à la carte kind of system.
Then we
Be
probably
part of
would
that
want
board
like 2
members.
users.
No, it would be presumably the records administrator, the person who's authorized to complete to respond to the court request.
Okay.
I believe is who
So
is
it's
the only one with
user.
the
Okay.
access switch.
Would that be-
Usually it's good to have a
Back
backup.
out.
Certainly. It's worth $10, I think, to have backup.
Good, thank you, guys.
So do you want to,
Do you two want to vote on that, is what I would ask. On voting on just adopting a policy for recouping funds for core requests.
Weren't you gonna put that on the next month?
We can put it on the next month's agenda.
I mean, I don't have any problem with charging something, just not exorbitant.
And you mentioned that city and county of Denver's policy, maybe that could be circulated.
Yes, okay, so we'll put it on the next
Mirror the
agenda.
policy.
You can still do the next meeting if you want.
next month?
Peanut gallery.
Yeah.
Are we
Okay,
moving on?
yes.
Yes.
Uh,
I had a
That's
call
you.
for subcommittees.
This is Niffy's item.
I would like to do this quickly if possible. I would like to have a call for subcommittees amongst the community members and board members. Basically, 3 or 4 of them. Recruitment and retention would be one of those subcommittees. The finalizing the 81 remodel, and then district funding sources would be the 3rd subcommittee that I'd be interested in launching.
What was the last one? I'm sorry.
just funding, like alternate funding sources, whether it's grants, whether it's talking to, the county, et cetera, to figure out how we can fund our fire district. So
What was the first one? I'm sorry.
recruitment and retention of firefighters.
Nippy.
Yes,
Can I just suggest maybe that be an item for next month and you kind of list out what that subcommittee would be
doing,
helping do, because that all sounds good, but it's like,
Yeah.
wow, that sounds like a lot. Like, what would that person from the community be helping do, kind of just give a little blurb that
sure,
A, B, and C, and maybe next month, put it on the agenda, so
it's
the
late.
community, yeah,
We'll put it on.
yeah. So I'll do like descriptions of. each
Yes, I'll
committee.
get that.
Okay.
So I'm at least just throwing it out there.
Yeah,
Sam, I'd
it's a
love for
good
you to
thought,
be
it's a
on one
good
of
thought,
those if
but I just-
possible.
We have a lot
Right,
of resources and a lot of resources in this community that we hope to tap into and encourage to help.
All right, well, then we are
Where are we?
planning commission.
This is you, Steve.
I went to the planning commission meeting last night. The reason I went was because I found out from Chief DeFeo in June that he had been attending and writing codes and promoting them to the county through the Fire Marshals Association, Jefferson County Fire Marshals Association. So I got involved to the degree I could. So did Deb. We attended the only other meeting, which was in late June, which is an online meeting. There is a lot of changes coming down. After the Superior fire, there's been a big push. So these changes, what attracted my attention, and this isn't going to be just real fast, I'll try to keep it fast. What attracted my attention is mandatory defensible space in perpetuity with class 1 zoning violation penalties for all new construction. And that would include barns, sheds, decks, additions. So what bothered me about that is they're establishing two different groups of people in our community. Those who have to comply and those who don't. Those who get a fine and those who don't. If you have an existing house, no problem. But if you're building a house or building an addition, you now have to comply forever. And the county last night, and it's all on tape, you can watch it. They said, why aren't you doing this for everybody? The planning commission asked, and they said, because we don't have enough inspectors and we're complaint driven. Which led me to be a little more nervous that they want to make this, and it's great to have defensible space. I mean, I have it, probably most of us here have it, but do you want to have a zoning violation if you don't have it? And do you want to be exempt while your neighbor's not exempt? These are some of the questions. But as I sat there, I heard a lot more things I didn't know, because it was quite the meeting. And they did vote, and it was approved, to push this forward to the Board of County Commissioners, which will then get voted on October 4th. But they're asking now for 10-foot trimming on all sides of the roads, 10 foot back, all vegetation removed. And the roads are quite large these days. I believe they're 25, if not 30 feet wide, all new roads, access roads to homes. They're asking now that it be taken out of the fire districts. The county last night said, the staff said, they had contacted all the surrounding fire districts. Now I called Dave today and talked to Dave, and I asked Dave if he had been contacted.
Dave who?
Dave Kennard.
Oh,
And Dave implied, Dave said to me right out that he wasn't contacted and he didn't hear anything about this. I believe Chief DeFeo was the only person who was contacted, and he was giving his input that he chose to give. But I don't think he was informing the community as much. I believe this, he even said this, Chief DeFeo, because I know he didn't want me going to any of the meetings, which I used to go to. So there's been very little stakeholder input into this process. In other words, people who own property up here have not had a real voice. They can comment once the rules are all in writing about them, but they're not part of the creation of these rules. It's going to make building more expensive. And when I say
Steve,
building,
on that point, are they in writing now?
yes,
Some
there
way
is a
that we can-
draft
we can look at
update
it?
of the Jefferson County Wildfire Code.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been approved last night. There were two, not abstaining, there were 2 nay votes by planning commissioners. And all the other ones voted aye. So it wasn't a smooth sailing. There was a lot of discussion. It seems that a lot of the people creating these codes, they don't live up here. They don't live in the mountains. They probably live in some other part of the flat part of Jefferson County where 250,000 people in Jefferson County live or so. They're not up here. So I don't believe we're getting good representation. It's gonna make building up here a lot more expensive because right off the bat, they're asking for a licensed engineer for all driveways. So before you could, like Chief DeFeo or any other previous authorized person could come up and say, you know, your driveway's good or your driveway's bad. But now it's gonna take a licensed engineer. That's a new thing they're gonna ask for. They stated last night at the meeting that the fire districts want this. And I wasn't allowed to respond. I had my 3 minutes. And I'm thinking, no, we never asked for that licensed engineers, but they're representing that as the case. Let me see what else I have here. They say they contacted everybody. I think I mentioned that. It goes in, okay, the grades, they're trying, some people want the alternative minimum standard to be gone. That means if you have too steep of a road, and they say, if you put $5,000 in a community cistern fund, you can get by with your steeper road. And some of these roads are already in existence and in use, but it doesn't matter. If you're building a new house, this road doesn't fall under their guidelines and you'll be stopped. Or at least that's the implication I'm getting. I don't think it's been well reviewed. I think the Board of County Commissioners need to be contacted and say, slow down. Let the fire districts have their meetings, whether it be board members and community members, and it should be discussed and this should be gone over, this updates to these codes. That's my feeling.
You can go to Jefferson County and get on their notification. I get notifications for every meeting that happens, whether it's open space, whether it's county commission, whether it's planning and zoning.
Man, that you can see this meeting that last
And
night.
Do you have the
I
link to it
suggest-
so I can put it in the minutes and people can actually just find it easily and not have to look for it?
I have it at my fingertips right now, but last night's meeting, like all meetings at the county are videotaped and they're online. So you don't have to take my word for it. You can sit through 2.5 hours of meeting.
You can watch them
You
on
can
fast
watch it.
forward.
Yeah.
There's only a couple people in attendance too. Besides 15 county members, attorneys, planning commissioners. I got to meet the director of the planning and zoning department. He was very interested in what I had to say. I don't believe our case was well represented.
You can bring up the agenda for the county commission meeting, which is on the 4th. Is that correct?
The
County
Board of County Commissioners meeting is on the 4th.
Okay,
Their agenda is probably, last night the agenda was 700 pages.
I know. Yeah, I know. It
It's like,
takes a
how
lot.
do you
I
figure it
know.
out?
But you can email in your displeasure, your pleasure, your comments. Numbers count. Numbers count. And if you find something in that agenda or that you find distressing, you need to speak up.
Well, I would say that it's hard to do this by October 4th for the people in this room, or even for me. I would say that you need to review eventually this proposed new change to the wildfire code. And the only way you'll get to do that is asking for the Board of County Commissioners to delay a little bit. There was a lot of controversy last night in the Planning Commission meeting, but they did approve it, but not unanimously. So now if the Board of County Commissioners, that's the final approval before it becomes law. If you get them to delay, you're not saying no, you're not saying yes, you're saying give us time. Because there hasn't been a lot of time. I didn't even know about it until June. And otherwise I would have said it earlier, but there's a lot of things in there that I think will have a heavy effect. It could even make building in the mountains impossible.
What is the name of the document?
It's the Jefferson County Unincorporated Wildfire Code update. That's pretty much it. And I can put you in touch with the 2 staff members who are in charge of it. Their names are, and you could easily find them, Heather Gotherless and Cassidy Clement. They're the 2 staff members who are in charge of the process. But they bring it to the planning commission, who then takes it to the board of county commissioners, and they're acting under the guidance of the director of Department of Planning and Zoning.
Steve, the more, if you can get me all of this stuff in writing, I can put it in the minutes, I can get it on the website faster than rather than us just talking about it.
I
here.
will get it
If
to
we
you
can
in
get it
writing.
wider.
I'll get your information, so at least people who want to be informed can make that small effort, and I would imagine they'll send you the documents they have so far.
Yeah, you can see.
And then you have to read them,
See it.
it's 20 or 30 pages of stuff.
Are you recommending a motion to the board, Steve, to review
Just make
the
it
proposal? and
Yes, I would like to make a motion to the board. I'd like to make a motion to the board that as a board, we write a letter as a board saying to the Board of County Commissioners that they give more time for us to review this situation and our community members to read it and understand what they're trying to pass. It's gonna affect people up here.
Okay, so the meeting is on the 4th. Sorry, I'm not, do we need a second first?
Second.
Okay, all right, I'd like to discuss that. Like, we have to come up with that letter right now.
A request to delay a decision.
Right, the content of that, we need to approve right now in order to get that out. Otherwise, we have to call a special meeting in order to
I don't
approve.
want
it.
to-
Yeah, so like, can we, do you want to write the text of that so we can approve it and move? Or what would you like to do?
Very basic. Explain that
I get that it's basic. I'm not gonna vote on something getting sent out that I haven't seen yet. Or
Requested to delay a decision on that
the
particular.
Golden Gate Canyon Board of Directors request that the county commissioners delay their decision for 6 months to allow the districts an opportunity to further
Review.
study and review and have
And
input.
have them.
That's
Comment.
That's recorded, so if we agree to that text, is that,
Didn't they, what was their, they already decided, didn't they? They already voted.
there's multiple boards. There's the board of, it's the planning commission.
the planning
Planning
commission?
commission.
They voted, the board of county commissioners has not decided. That's on October 4th.
So that 700-page document, it looks like it's already up on the Jeffco website. If you search under Planning Commission Agenda Center.
Did you
Right.
find it?
Yeah,
And the item we're interested in starts at about 6:45, I'd say, page 645, if I'm not mistaken.
It's hard to write this so quickly.
I know, I'd like to actually get it done.
Delays. the water.
Didn't you first it and he seconded it?
I made a
What
move
was-
and I seconded, but we have to like say what
The
is the
language.
language of it, so that we know what we're voting on.
6:45, you said
I
that?
think so. Having gone through 700 pages last night.
Do you have the title of that item?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we probably want to address that directly in our letter.
Well, my notes are at home and they had all the numbers of the pages that were.
So 6 months?
Yeah.
I think that's fair. That's kind of quick considering everything we've got going on here.
Do we want to reach out to Fairmont, Evergreen, Timberline, see if they'd like to send a similar letter?
Timberline is in Gilpin County.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
Maybe Cold
Evergreen
Creek.
What's that one
Incorporated.
I'm looking at?
Okay.
So it would be
Okay.
Who else is on it?
Well, it's unincorporated, so I'm not sure.
at least half a dozen.
Foothills is.
Okay. All right.
So here's my letter. You want to hear it?
Sure.
Request that the Board of County Commissioners delay decision on wildfire code updates as discussed at the Planning Commission meeting or hearing, I think they call it hearing on September 14th, 2022. That specifies it was yesterday's hearing. Until our district, I should put GGFPD, board and community have a chance to review, period. We request a 6-month delay. I know that's rough.
It's close enough.
Review and comment.
Review and
And
comment.
provide,
We request a 6-month delay to provide comments.
no, you said review and comment. We want to do more than just. a review.
Okay, and comment. Okay, you want me to read it again?
Yes.
Our board requests that the Board of County Commissioners, that would be the Jefferson County Commissioners, delay decision or any decision, I'll fill in those words, on wildfire code updates as discussed at the Planning Commission meeting or hearing on September 14th, 2022, until our district board and community have a chance to review and comment. We request a 6-month delay.
That sounds good to me. If we have I would allow us to like edit the wildfire code updates to whatever
To the
their
proper
specific,
name?
the proper name.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I move that we send that letter from the board president.
Nice. Second that.
Any more discussion?
Call
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll get with you, Julie.
You want to, anybody want to take a photo of what I wrote? Take a read my writing?
Sure. And I'll
Yes.
send the recording to
You
you.
need to.
I'll just fill in the ands and, the punctuation in order to make it.
Okay.
I'll write it.
Yep.
And I'll send it to you, Deb. And you
Okay.
put it on the proper letterhead.
Do we
Yeah.
want to reach out to other districts that are eligible, that are unincorporated as well, just to see if we can get a little bit more support?
We could send a letter to them, copy them.
Right, but if we're sending it, the board has to vote to send out an official communication. So I would move that we send this to our other peer boards
In Jefferson.
in Jefferson
In
County,
unincorporated.
in unincorporated Jefferson County, that,
About things like DMRA too.
sure,
And the other.
every other organization, yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, are we?
Well, I mean, sorry, we can send the letter to DMRA. I don't know that we need to like ask you to do that. We'll just send it to you guys, forward it, send
Just make them aware.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, right.
Well, you can request a copy of the letter too.
Oh, okay.
Because it is done.
Okay, okay.
I move that we send it to our like peer districts and unincorporated Jefferson County.
And Chris,
Can I just get a second on that? So we
I
can,
second it.
any discussion?
Yes. Can Chris, I don't know all the unincorporated mountain regions.
Chris will get it for us.
Okay.
On 17.
There's 17.
I don't
Not
know if it's
Jefferson
17.
County.
There's a lot of Jefferson County small fire
Well,
districts.
then maybe that's too much to send it to everybody.
No, we're just sending it to their board president, to their boards, like, and we'll go from there.
If you want to have clouds, you absolutely have to get out and get to other similar organizations, including the LRA,
Yes.
Grant Association. and
Mhm.
Our presidents can send letters too,
Yes, thank you.
absolutely.
All right, so any more discussion?
Call the vote.
I did find the regulation amendment with the numbers so
Okay.
that we can add that to
Thank you.
our letter.
Take a picture of it.
Screen, send me the URL.
Is it, what's the page number?
Well, I'm working off
Okay.
the page 5 of the agenda, which,
Okay.
yeah. And 641 didn't take.
So
me.
just page 5 of 5, the meeting.
The planning commission agenda, I believe is what Dave's referring to.
Okay, so do we want to, I've moved, it's been a second, we're gonna vote on
Yeah.
sending it out to the community organizations and peer fire districts.
Oh, we've got a motion and a second, correct?
Yes,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes.
Steve, do you think one of those two folks that you mentioned, is their administrator champions would be willing to come and provide some expert review of?
I was
exactly-
rebuffed last night when I tried to talk to any individual commission.
Do you think if somebody else asked that they might want to come and give
I
us a
doubt it.
review?
The process is. No, I
I'm
was,
sorry, I'm just teasing.
okay,
Yeah.
but maybe in your case it would. No, they said the process is to go through the staff.
So one of their staff could come out.
If you can, if you know the commissioners. Right,
Voted for
I
one of them.
actually do.
planning commissioners,
Yes.
not board of county commissioners.
Oh,
It's like
planning.
Planning, there's like 8 or 9 of them.
Well,
I will make contact with them and find out if we can't find somebody to come out and talk to us.
okay, thank you.
Okay,
If you have any
so,
trouble finding the specifics of what we're referring to, let me know. I'm gonna send a link to Niffy and
Okay, thank you.
all righty. Have another, public comment, anybody want to say a few last words before we adjourn?
I do, but I'm gonna keep myself.
So no, yes, okay. Julie?
Please do not take offense. This is actually on your behalf. I know a lot of people do not like Steve. And yes, he has a rough personality. But I will tell you, to have him on this board is a good thing. I'm right there with you. He can annoy the shit out of me, but he's good. He looks at stuff that we don't look at, that we think is nonsense, that we sit there and, oh my God, Steve, shut up. But he's got points. Amen. So please cut Steve some slack. He does his part, and I think he does it well. It's annoying as shit, but it's well.
He's a great firefighter too.
That's what I didn't hear you say. What you said. Well, you got it. Thank you,
You think.
Hold on.
thank you.
Is there any other?
Anybody else? Anybody?
Oh, geez, sorry.
Oh,
Just a brief, excuse me. One of your election promises was communication. The last I heard, there were only 67 people on the email list for the fire district. I think that it would behoove you to expand that number because nobody knows what's going on. And if you had more people who knew that there was a board meeting, or more people who knew what you were trying to do for the community, you will get more support. So I'd like to recommend that you make an attempt to expand your email list.
Absolutely. That was
was-
that's one of the items, was getting that widget back on the website to get more emails and get a lot more, like we might ask the DMRA with their permission if we can just import their list into the distribution list as well, and any other community organizations out there to make sure that that stuff gets out. So
But you need to be proactive because most people don't even know you have a website.
I didn't know either. So I didn't even know any of this. I didn't know there was an email list. I didn't know anything about it. And so that is definitely something that I want to do.
Definitely.
I'm right there with you.
I'm looking at, I've already started a skeleton
Mhm.
of a newsletter.
Okay.
Because I know most people are online, but not all of them.
And that is actually one of our
Something just
duties as a
realized.
board, is to provide, it says meetings and a newsletter. So
One more thing.
one more thing, sorry, and I shouldn't have let this, is there any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to personally thank Sheila and Kennard for being on the board. Kennard, despite what others might think of this room, has been an excellent treasurer for this community. He has made huge changes. You talk about the audits, talk about other things that on the treasurer side, it is a huge job to take on, and I would challenge anybody in this room to do as good a job as he's done. So thank you very much. Chief Enright was nice in his comment on our response with on calls that have few firefighters. You know, we've had a couple here lately where we've had to stand down, not in, the comment was made of insufficient personnel. The comment really should be no personnel. Those calls were turned down because there were 0 people in our district to respond. Nobody. Now, luckily, those were mutual aid calls. It will happen one of these days where we have
it's somebody in our district that calls 911 and the gate will not be coming. Now we have other, you call Fairmont, Golden, Timberline, it's coming. And we lost one of our responders, Chief Theo, and the fact that he was at the bottom of the canyon working every day, he would come up here by himself to respond to our district when we lost that. So I'm just a heads up. The other thing, since Steve brought up the amendment A, I would ask the board to put up for a vote. Let's just increase the mill levy permanently. The fire district needs it. And that's the only way this fire district's going to survive, is to increase the mill levy for the entire community permanently. That's it.
I also would like you to help out with that recruitment and retention subcommittee, but I'm just putting that plug in.
I take that as not willing to.
Okay. I'll give you a call.
Mhm.
Okay.
Did you want,
So the one thing that, you know, in light of understanding that Ms. Carlin and Dr. Kennard are resigning from the board, that does create 2 vacancies. And so we need to be able to address that at the next board meeting, I believe. Our bylaws indicate that a vacancy in a director position shall be filled by an affirmative vote of the majority of the remaining directors in accordance with the Special District Act. The appointed individual must be an eligible elector and shall serve until the next regular special district election, as established by the Special District Act. Time served to fill a vacancy does not count towards the overall 8-year term limit defined in Section A above. So with that being said, I think it would be important for us to put on our website and distribute to the community a call for probably using the same self-nomination form that we use in the regular election, and then allow the 3 remaining board members to select the next, the other 2 board members, if that makes sense.
I thought it was based on the election, the next.
There's
Class.
nothing that says that
Okay.
in the special district.
That's an option.
That's an option. It's a logical option.
Okay.
So.
What you've outlined is exactly what has happened in the past, at least in the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
And I would like to say thank you to Sheila and Dave also. There aren't that many people who volunteered.
Yeah.
And even though we butt heads, thank you. Not for butting heads, but for volunteering.
I want to say specifically to Dr. Kennard, there is a wealth of knowledge that you've brought to this district and effort with, you know, your treasurer reports and just the going above and beyond and providing for this community as treasurer and also as a firefighter in the past. So thank you for that and for serving this community as a director.
It's a privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also directly to Sheila, I'm probably going to call you every once in a while. You're so knowledgeable about how a district runs. You've been here on this board for a long time, and I hope that you would answer our call and continue to serve in that way, because I just look over to you like, hey, Sheila, how does this work? You've served this community very well. I'm very thankful for that service that you've provided.
And my thanks to both of you also. Okay. Motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
amen.
All in
Thank
favor?
you. Thank you all for coming and see. Oh, wait,
Oh.
Carrie. Oh, the
Station
next
82,
meeting, thank you.
6 October,
6th of October.
I believe.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
We'll be in touch. I'll try to look over all of
I'll forward that.
Yeah.
I'll forward that email from the information, and then you'll have the contact. that I took. No.
Our gate allocation is next year, so it's, I find the time when I can. It's so cool.
Oh, I never asked for a comment from the phone.
And we do have checks.
John, the meeting is adjourned.
Those,
Thank you.
Those checks.